which is my strong suit.
We are live. What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord, here with his good buddy Dion from Dion Talk Financial Freedom. How's it going, Dion?
Howdy. I'm doing great. I'm excited for this. Thank you for reaching out on this Saturday of mine.
Let's be honest. The exact text was, hey, in between naps today, any interest in doing a live stream?
So to explain the monumental sacrifice that's being made of my time this week, World of Warcraft came out with an expansion. And historically, when World of Warcraft come out with an expansion, I would take a week off of work and sit at home and play for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
God bless.
But I've still done all my live streams this week, even though I don't have a job.
It's, I mean, you are something. It's a miracle.
The biggest nerd in the group.
Yeah. but good to have you. Good to have you here. So kind of what we wanted to talk about. Hey there. Good morning, Chester. Oh, there's the hider. What's going on, hider? So what we kind of wanted to talk about today was, as I talked about in a video, probably about 60 days ago now at this point, which was I was going to start to actively transition my portfolio over to Section 8 and housing. And the reason that I use the terminology Section 8 and housing is because some people still identify it as Section 8, even though the new name of it is actually typically the Housing Authority. And then those are run a bunch of different ways. But largely that strategy is based on something that I learned from Dion and from Mike. And so I think that, kind of doing that transition, I started to look at how much of my rent can I guarantee? And I think that that's a lot where Dion came in. So I see Chris Ledbetter. You finally caught alive. Good to have you, Chris. Millennial Mike, he has the day off. Hey, Mike, you want to?
I just sent it to him.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Dude, jump on. Happy day off, Mike. Yep. It was well earned. Mike and I were doing a call last night at 11 o'clock my time. Oh my word. Yeah.
I sent that to the first Mike that popped up in my email chain. So I think it's going to be Millennial Mike.
Fingers crossed. Oh, right. There's Marina. Hi, Marina. Good to have you. Kenor. Hey, Kenor, what's up? KS. Hey guys. Happy to learn with you today. Oh, we're super excited. Hopefully there's something here that will help you. But we did, so I've been just transitioning my portfolio, to Section 8 and housing stuff. And so I was just kind of going to give an update. Dion and I were going to talk about housing. I love Dion like a brother or much older brother. He only does one thing that just absolutely just makes my blood boil is when he says his Section 8 tenant has an 831 credit score. And it's true. It's true. But the thing that I love about it is I love it because this has helped me learn a ton, because I was like, oh man, you're finding tenants with amazing credit. Sweet. So the reason I wanted to bring it up was because I wanted to share my journey with everyone, because Dion has a different journey. And I think, and I'm grateful to Dion for kind of mentioning that and, Section 8 housing and things like that, because I was hugely afraid. My initial review of the program kind of stunk, but I found out that was more about the process and one given housing authority. And that's what Dion was able to kind of teach me, that hey, they're not all the same. And I'm like, oh, really? They're different. And then as I did more work, they certainly were different. So anyway, so let's talk about the first thing, which was the 831 credit score. So Dion, I have looked at over 100 applications for Section 8, and I have never seen anybody over 800. And I've only seen 2 or 3 people over 700. And so the reason I bring that up is because I think one of the things that Dion knows is it's very different region to region. So Dion, what do you think about?
First thought, All Nighter Hider has a great sense of humor. You'll see when you get to the comments, but real estate is local. Yeah, it is local, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Millennial Mike, if he pops on here, we'll probably say it much more eloquently than I'm about to, because it's his market and his investing strategy. That in Gary, Indiana, he was told by somebody there, either the property manager or his agents, that if somebody has a credit score above 600, 650, whatever it was, they just buy a house because houses are $30,000.
Right.
So you have to know your local market. And yes, there are Section 8 tenants in my area who apply. There are non-Section 8 tenants who apply who have really low credit scores. In my opinion, since I don't check or care about income, I put a lot more weight on credit score. You also check income, right? So you have another check and balance in place that I just don't check, because I don't want to eliminate people who make the majority of their income through tips, like bartenders, waiters, cosmetologists, things like that.
Sure.
And so I've eliminated that, but then I raised the credit score, idea being, I know how much work it took to fix my credit score after my divorce and finding out about a bunch of bad debt, to where I would lose sleep if I thought I wasn't going to make a bill. Right. If I pay a bill. So my opinion is people who have worked hard to get their credit scores up will work to protect it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Section 8 or not.
Agreed.
So what an owner or investor needs to determine is, what is the average score in your area? Just like a buy box and a rent box. What is average? Try to beat that. And in my area, I'm around Tacoma, Washington. So I'm not in the Seattle, Washington area where I wouldn't invest. But I'm in an area where there are multiple economic drivers. Right? Several ports in the Puget Sound, one of the largest military installations, several naval bases, a lot of, the children's hospital you hear about on TV is in this area, several colleges, Boeing, Amazon, like all of these different economic drivers. So that finding somebody with my minimum credit score is 700 when I'm placing a tenant. So I often talk about my Section 8 who has an 831, because I wasn't expecting that. I thought in the 700s, sure, I will take, and I have right now 3 Section 8 properties. I probably want to fill a 4th because I like to maintain around. I have 16. I want a 3rd with the housing program. And I'm not really sure on the math. It's not an exact science, but it's a balance so that, the government shutdown, the pandemic, the stock market crash isn't going to impact the entire portfolio, just sections of it.
Yeah.
A form of diversification. So I'm glad to see that you're doing that too.
Yep.
But if I was in an area where the average credit score was 680 instead of, I was easily finding over 700s. If I couldn't find them, I would adjust.
Yeah.
I have tenants with credit scores in the 500s.
Okay.
But I didn't place them.
Right.
I purchased a property that had a tenant in place that I didn't screen or vet. And then I waited 2 months to do the binder strategy to make sure they were going to pay on time. I wasn't going to get noise complaints, and they were going to call me for trivial things. And they passed the sniff test, and not the actual sniff test, but they passed the I'm not going to have issues with this person test. So I've kept them as tenants, but I will tell you, every time I've had a conversation with a tenant, and I educate tenants on 2 things when they ask this question. They'll say something like, hey, I don't really have the money for rent this month. Can I pay a week late? Or can I do the thing with, I'm going to get a big tax return. Can I just pay half of December and then pay more later? So some conversation comes up, like it's never with the tenants that have over a 700 credit score. They wouldn't even think of asking that. Right. They want to protect their credit. But the ones that have those challenges, I educate them on a couple of things. First, I say, look, if you're not going to be able to pay the rent, I'm going to do you a favor and I'm going to file for an eviction immediately.
Sure.
Because there's programs out there that won't help you unless the paperwork is filed. So that will be in your favor. And second, here's why I don't want you to pay your rent a week late. I actually have a Dion talk with him and I say, look, on a normal month, a tenant has 4 weeks to come up with the rent for next month. If we allow you to go 1 week late, it helps you this month, sure, but now you only have 3 weeks to prepare for next month. And I'm setting you up for an eviction. And so far, although I've had the conversation with tenants, I've never had a late or missing payment because every tenant has sat back and thought, I'm not going to do that. And here he is.
Captain America went running for his studio.
I was
pants are optional.
I'm wearing some sweatpants. Okay. I was doing my homework from you, and I was emailing a city planner of Gary and actually looking up a bunch of Section 8 stuff. So I was doing the work, guys.
He's doing the work. This is what we love. And so to Dion's point, so the thing in our market, and again, the numbers are just what they are. I've got 4% of tenants with over a 700 credit score if they're in the Section 8 housing program. 4% or over 700. So that's not going to work. The good news is that if they are 700, they pretty much win, because it's just like, oh, you're a 700. Yeah. Like perfect. Like this is ideal. I think the other thing too is, and kind of to the point as well is, some Section 8 tenants or housing tenants get their entire rent paid for them. The big concern that we have is that you also have money on top of that. And most people don't know this. And I'm about to drop an absolute bombshell that I think most people have no idea is the case. If you're on Social Security income, you actually can't go after that if they don't pay their rent. That is income that you cannot recapture. So that's something that most people don't know. And so what's interesting is I have to count SSI or Social Security. I have to count that towards income when qualifying them for a unit. But if I have to evict them and that's their only income, I am SOL. I got no relief whatsoever. And that's just a bill that will never, ever, ever get any money out of SSI or Social Security. Dion.
A great reason why it's no more than a third of the portfolio.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. It's spreading risk. So I think the key to this is really understanding as you're diversifying exactly what you're diversifying for. I diversified to get more into Section 8 because I want more rents guaranteed and I want to help the affordable housing piece. And when we were doing it on our own and working with tenants on our own, the problem is that those were the people that quickly went to, those were the people that were, a majority of our evictions. And so doing this with a program that's already in place, that already oversees it, they don't want to lose out on their benefit, etc. This is where it's really lent itself well. Chris Ledbetter, no question. Just got a text from my realtor saying my offer was accepted on a duplex during the live stream. Can this day get any better? Chris, I don't know that it can. I don't know that we would ask for it to get any better. Congratulations on your offer being accepted on a duplex. Quick question. Have you considered all the crash videos? I'm kidding, of course. The good news is if you've gotten an offer accepted, you did the work, you did the math, and you know that it turns money. So congratulations to you, Chris. So I think and Mike, Dion kind of talked a little bit about your story, which was tell us what the folks in Gary told you when you talked about high credit scores.
Yeah. So used to being a, landlord out here in Washington before I went to Gary, and the requirements I would have for a tenant out here are completely different for Gary. I mean, if you say, yeah, I want my tenant to have a 720 credit score, 3 times the income for the rental, your property manager is going to look at you and laugh.
Yeah.
Because she literally looked at me and said, well, I mean, I understand that works for you out there, but if somebody has a 620 credit score in Gary, they just buy a house. A house is $50,000. Right. If a bank will lend to you, then even if your credit score is really low, yeah, it's going to affect your interest rate. But on a $50,000 house, it's nothing. So, I had to get coached up on what the industry standards are in that area. And that's probably going to be for anyone going into any different industry. And according to Dion, it might even just be a different county, one county over, and you might have to get completely coached up. That might be a couple miles.
Yeah. Dion.
So one really important thing there, Mike, is it's local.
Yeah.
Right. You have to find out what works there. And an example is just like you said, I'm in 2 counties. One county I'll work with the housing program and the other I won't. They touch each other. The counties are right together. But there's a comment here from James G. Thank you for being here on the live stream, saying most renters have subprime FICOs. We also have to pay attention to the shifting market. In a time when most people with good credit and solid income would just buy a house, that might be true. But this year and last year, prices are going up and rates are going up. So home buyers are being priced out. We are seeing consistently across the board, and I don't want to say better quality. What I mean is higher credit scores, lower debt to income, higher income, people applying to be tenants because they can't buy.
Right.
An 850 credit score doesn't mean you can buy a house when the price and the rate is so high that your income won't support the purchase.
Right.
So the market can change on the type of renters you're getting too.
Yeah. The other thing real quick is, so just to, you guys know I'm a numbers guy. James G, this isn't an attack on you. It's just making sure you know the numbers that we look at. So generally in the market, about 70%, 73% of people don't have a subprime credit. So it's really only kind of 20-ish% have subprime credit. So because of that subprime credit, again, that's what will make it more difficult for them to be renters, etc. However, I can tell you, I have 137 units of people that are filled with a 680 credit score or greater. So I have basically 0 tenants that have a subprime, a subprime credit score. That's just, again, want to share that with you so that way people know factually exactly what my portfolio is. And Theta Hedge, it's not Sunday unless you're Dion. It's
every
actually
night is Friday night.
It's actually Friday. But yeah, I think it's been interesting just to kind of watch, what the market's done. The one thing that I'm still having trouble getting used to, and again, I'm just an open book, I'll always share this stuff. The one thing I'm still having trouble getting used to is the time, right? Like we're transitioning 4 units to Section 8 and the time is a nightmare. Like, okay, getting the, like we are pretty good with the process now, so we can get the inspection pretty quickly. And then they write back, and some of the stuff that I see on this thing literally makes the hair fall out of my head. Look like Dion. It just makes me go mental when I look at some of the stuff on the list, and I'm like, okay, fine. But here's the cool thing. I can tell you, of the stuff that they put on that list, I have one guy go in for 4 or 5 hours and everything on their list is done. Like it's nothing of real substance.
Are you using the strategy where you talk to the inspector and say, hey, instead of scheduling a second inspection, can I send you videos of the items being fixed?
Yep.
Okay.
So we actually, so it's that's a great thing. So we had always done that with our town inspectors, our code enforcement folks. The first house or 2 houses that we did, they were like, no, we're going to come on site. I was like, totally get it. And after they saw that we do things right and always take the recommendation, unless it costs $20,000, we just take pictures of it. And so we literally send them an email and say, here's the report. And then we list out the images based on the subsection of what the report is. And I actually name the image, issue 1, issue 1.1, issue 1.2, etc. We send that email off to them. And so far that's worked great. We actually got an inspector. So we had it inspected at 4:00 on a Wednesday. By 3:00 on Thursday, we had done the entire list. I'd gotten all of the pictures. I literally put them in an email, sent them off and said, please see all items on the inspection report addressed. Please let me know if there's anything else that needs to happen further. And believe it or not, by 5:00 that night, we got an email back from the inspector saying, this is absolutely awesome. You're all set. I consider this a pass. So that took 2 hours to get that response. Make the people that you're working with, make their job easier. Try to curate an environment of getting them the things that they need in a timely manner. That's why for me, the toughest part is I have a couple units available. I'd like to throw them on the market right away and get them rented because I know I can rent them pretty quickly. But we specifically are working with Section 8 because they said, oh yeah, we have this big, huge list and we want to help with that affordability, but they're slow. And that's what's killing me a little bit is I'm going to have a unit vacant for 6 weeks to have it go through the Section 8 process. But once it's in that process, it can be there forever. And then I'll never have to wait that 6 weeks again. So I've talked to Section 8 about the fact that I'm making an investment in the program, trying to help this product out. Do you guys have any thoughts or any ideas around that? Because I haven't figured out how to make them go any faster.
So I have units that are approved for Section 8 that don't have Section 8 tenants in it. It's not something that you have to do at the same time.
Yeah,
you can have other tenants in place. And then if that tenant moves out, that is already an approved place. You just say, it's on you guys' list. And what I do is I call the counselors. So I try to maintain a balance.
Yes.
This many military, this many Section 8, this many working or retired, right? So if I want a military tenant, I just, here on JBLM, there's the different agency that you can contact at each installation. Contact MWR and they'll know who to talk to in your area and say, here's the link. Can you share it with the people that handle housing?
Right.
Call the counselor for Section 8 and say, on Tuesday, this link's going live. Can you share this with the people? Here's the criteria also. That way there's no gap. It is painful to get the process set up.
Yeah.
But so is buying a property, right?
Yeah.
Buying a property is a lot different than having a tenant turnover in the future, or changing something on the property, like turning it into short-term rental, turning it into traveling nurses, turning it into what that purchase was harder. Getting it set up is a few hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
But once it's in place, it's kind of like me having a commercial driver's license.
Yes.
My goal is to never work again in my life, right?
But you have it.
But I'm going to maintain that license.
Yeah.
I'm never going to let it go. Like, I know what you have to go through to get it back. So I would keep your units registered with the housing authority, even if you have non-Section 8 tenants move in.
Yeah, 100% agree. And that's the thing is, you look at my portfolio 2 years ago, I had zero. And so we're going through that process now, but we're making that investment in our business, in our portfolio. And we're also, to Dion's point too, is, you buy that building and then you're trying to stabilize the unit. That's something that we've done, 16 buildings in the last 2 years, 17 buildings in the last 2 years. And so for us, that's been a part of it, is as we go through that process, we've actually inherited a number of Section 8 housing tenants. And that's been fine. And so our process has been, obviously those are already on the list, and that's great. But then in some tenants where we've done the binder strategy, had that conversation with them, and it believe it or not, there's just a couple where it's just not going to work out. They're just like, well, I'll just move home then. Okay. Okay. I sounds good. Like that's fine. One person was really angry because they were paying $1,100 a month and that unit's worth $1,800. And I just said, what do you think is fair? And they were like, $1,150. I was like, that's
an
a huge
ongoing conversation.
That's a huge win for you. Yes, but it's not. I was like, well, fair would denote that it works well for both of us. Fairness. But yeah, so we had the conversation and we went back and forth a couple of times. He's just like, yeah, I'm not going to pay more than $1,200. And I said, I completely understand. Just so you know, so you're aware. And this is where communication as a landlord, the biggest mistake that landlords make is not communicating what's coming. You have to communicate what's coming. So that way that way the tenant knows, listen, this isn't a threat. We're having a conversation back and forth. I just want to make sure you're informed. That way, when I mean, I asked him, I said, would you like to pick a date that you want to move out? Because I'm happy to do it that way. And he's just like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I said, okay, I understand. That's not a problem. I said, well, if you want to think about it, certainly let me know. But tomorrow I'm just going to post that we're going to rehab the unit, and that your rent is also changing. And that's what we're going to go with. And the idea is to give you some time. So I'll put that 60 days out. So you have 60 days to make that happen. And then if you don't, then we just have the means by which we can then kind of take it down the path. And the good news is that they kind of got out without stink. They were happy. I was happy. And now we're just going through that unit, updating it, rehabbing it like we said we were going to, and then we'll put it back on the market for $1,800. So.
On the note of communication being key, something I did before the events of the last 2 years, I would do the binder strategy after 2 months of owning a property. And then every other year I would do a 5% increase.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that to the tenants. I would say, look, hey, this year I totally get it. We're going to be able to renew the lease at no rent increase, right? Next year, it's probably going to be different. And just leave it like that. Because normally a 5% every other year was good, and the tenants were fine with it because they expected that change, because they got to process an entire year without a rent increase.
Uh-huh.
And then 2020, 2021 happened where the rents went up 30 to 40% in my market. And I used the binder strategy again on all of them. And I had over 20% increase. Highest was 28. So that was the range, 20 to 28% increase from my tenants. And nobody batted an eye.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, yeah, no, we had a year without an increase and rents have gone up this much. Wow, that's crazy. But they don't want to go up to the 40% rent increase that happened, but asking for it to go up half of that or a little more was fair for both sides. And there's a question here from Theta Hedge Capital. I thought we would answer that really quick.
Yeah.
When presenting the binder method to the housing authority, where do you pull your rental comps from, and how many do you usually present? Almost exactly like the regular binder.
Exactly.
Comps come from the same places that housing authority is going to be able to verify your information. And I do a minimum of 4, because 1 or 2 can be a fluke. But if you find 4 consistently that are significantly higher than what they're currently paying or what they're willing to pay, and it's just through email form, just sent off the images, make sure you check for anything that they're going to find that is really low. You can actually send a low one and say, look, this one is much lower, but it's also income restricted. And my tenants, whatever their thing is. So when they look for it, you want to point out the thing that they're going to be able to use against you, and you want to do the work for them. The idea is they can take those 4 listings to their boss and say, here's why we can justify the higher payment on this rental.
Yep, totally agree. I saw one that I want to make sure that we answer for Dan. Give me just 1 second here. Dan Hunter. Dan, thanks so much for posting that. I appreciate the transparency. Happy to walk you through it. If you need some encouragement, go to my channel. There's a video out there that's about 1.5 minutes long where I literally walk through a unit that I got back after an eviction. We're in this together, my man. Watch the landlord product reviews because I needed every single one of those to do that project. But check that out. It'll probably save you. But to your point, is it worth it? They trash the property. I'm really sorry to hear that. We've had 9 evictions and I'd say 5 of them have trashed it. And yeah, we follow through. And so here's the thing that you can actually do. You can sue them. I know you can sue them with an attorney, and that might not be worth it, but it is worth it if you do a small claims, because in most states, small claims can be 5, 6, or 7. I'm waiting to see what Mike wrote because Dion's giggling like a 5-year-old.
I was trying not to. I was trying to maintain composure, but I have kryptonite.
But I will finish shut up, Mike. You're just jealous, Mike. You guys should have seen what I had to see last night on that live stream with Mike. I'll be covering that in a minute, Mike.
Oh, it's bad.
But that was awful. Marina, I can't believe that. Actually, I'm kind of glad that you made him do that because he actually had to go out in public looking like that. But anyway, so Dan, real quickly, I would absolutely do it. I would look and see in your state what the option is for small claims. Usually small claims is about $100 or so to file. You can represent yourself. So will you get the 20,000? I mean, maybe. Like, what was that tenant? If that tenant had a decent income, then I might consider doing, getting at least a letter from an attorney, sending that across. But if you go small claims, it solves 2 issues. One is you can do it for very little money. And if you think it's a lost cause, that's fine. You can still do it for very little money. But you do it. And if they show, then that's fine. If they don't show, you'll actually get a summary default judgment. That's what it's called. You get that summary default judgment, and then you can actually you can typically say, if you get that judgment, you can then do a couple of things with it. You can, 1, burn their ass in a nice way and sell it to a collection company, number 1. Or number 2 is you can actually do what's called a workout. A workout is there's a number that exists. Let's say it's $20,000, but in this case, you got a max of $7,000. You get your $7,000. You can actually do something which is called a workout, where you work on a payment plan for them, where you work with the judge to set the payment plan. Now, I can tell you, I have some landlords that I know that have a payment plan of they're literally getting paid $25 a week. Kid you not, on a $6,000-$8,000 judgment or $5,000 judgment. They're getting paid $25 a week. The key is that they have to continue to pay that. If they don't continue to pay that, in most states, you can then do, if they ever don't pay, you can actually send a letter of non-compliance, and that will actually generate a bench warrant. So you can decide how far you want to take it. I have never gone to that end of having a bench warrant, a bench warrant created. I've never gone to that degree. I know other landlords that have, but those are the things at your fingertips, Dan, that I think will help you. Because at the end of the day, if it goes unchecked, where even if they get an eviction, but they don't have they don't have some sort of a judgment against them, I don't want the judgment against them. What I really want them is just to pay, even if it's 20 or $25 a week. I still just want you to pay. I want you to do the right thing. And hey, if at the end of the day you add that up, it might take them a few years to pay it. But I have one of my landlord friends that actually says, he goes, I get between $300 and $400 a week of summary judgment payments. He goes, I'm fat, I'm old. It pays off my eating bill for the week. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. And at the end of the day, he's like, and I had to pay to fix it. So, that's what I would tell you. And then if you get, I just saw Pal Vang, how you send judgment to collection agency. Great question. Literally, you get a judgment from the bank and it's stated exactly that they were found guilty, that they owe this amount of money. You can actually call up a credit agency, or not like TransUnion or Experian, any of those guys. You can collections agencies around you. You can literally just look up collection agencies and say, I have a debt that I just want, or I have a judgment that I just won against an old tenant. I won the judgment. I have the documentation. That's all the collection agency then needs to take action. And then they can take action, and then they can basically pursue that person and try and get them to pay. So that's kind of the process and how it works. And you can negotiate with the collection agency how much you're willing to take pennies on the dollar. So they'll say, hey, it's a $6,000 judgment. What would you agree to? And some places will take 90%, some will take 80, some will take 70, some will take 50 even. If you can show them that, that the tenant is worth, or that the case was worthy, i.e. that it was against somebody that had a decent credit score, et cetera. Because that's why credit is important, is on the back end, not so much on the front end. Dion?
Couple things to consider.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not about collecting the money.
Yes.
It's about not letting this person repeat the process.
100%.
So if you can get it filed so that someone in the future will see it on their credit that they have a judgment. Some officers might not want to hear this, but also get a police report.
Yes.
If it looks intentional, if you can show intent, if it looks like wear and tear and it was trashed, yes. But if there's holes punched in things broken, just get the police report filed. It helps you in court. Keep track of any communication with the tenant, especially if you get something that says, I'm not paying. Yep. That is the thing that gets the eviction to go through the most, gets the judgment recorded the easiest. And then the last thing, just to keep the back of your mind, if your property is in an LLC, you can't represent yourself if you go to small claims court. You have to have representation. So a little drawback to having an LLC, but it's still worth doing. Not just for you, the collection, it would be great. It would be good to get some of that. Just Google collection agencies in your area. Or if you're in my area, one of the best ones around here is Grimm Collections. You can send your judgments to them and they will collect it. And it's like you said, they take a percentage.
Yep.
But then you get something, and it further puts it on the person's credit report and keeps it there.
Correct. Real quick, because I have you amazing law enforcement guys on the call with me. One of the things that I often see a mistake that gets made from even tenant to tenant, right? You get the call, tenants complaining, these guys are so loud, they're such a pain, they threatened to hit me, blah, 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 blah. And then no one calls the cops. And then some event happens 3 months, 6 months later, and you go, yeah, this is the 5th time they've done this. Did you call the cops any other time? No. Did you believe? So then what you're basically saying to the police officers that are showing up on site, I didn't think it was a credible threat. So I didn't actually go to the cops and actually file the report. And so I tell people all the time when they call me with something, I say, if you feel threatened enough to bring it to me, then you need to feel threatened enough to bring it to a cop. If you don't, then I can't hear it and you shouldn't hear it. Period. End of story. Kenny, go ahead.
Sorry, Dan. Imagine the suit you set yourself up for if you don't pursue this person and then you pursue someone else.
Right.
You set the precedence of this can happen and I won't pursue it.
Right.
Because the next one you might say, well, I couldn't handle the expense twice. And they'll go, what was the gender of the first person? What was the age of the first person? What was the marital status of the first person? All of the things that you can do to where whether you file or don't file, make sure you're consistent.
Yes, completely agree. Would you guys agree with that idea that I brought up of filing the police report?
Yeah. And All-Nighter Hider just said it really well. Documentation beats the conversation every single time. Like you have to show a proven history. You've taken these actions. When you go to court, you're going to have to show, I took these actions. I took these steps, just like with an eviction. You want to document the entire process. So police report, photos, multiple phone calls, this person's now becoming a nuisance. The first time you go out to something, you give them a warning, then you come back, and then maybe you issue a citation, and then eventually you might even upgrade it to a criminal like trespassing charge. But there's a process you go through. You can't just jump to the end. So if you skip all those things, when you really need it at the end, you're starting over at the beginning.
Great advice. And this is what I tell tenants too. If somebody's doing something, listen, if you don't believe it's a credible threat, then don't file the police report. If you believe it's a credible threat, you must. It's your fault. If the first time the cops and then you can't get pissed at them when they show up and you're like, this has happened 5 times. We've gotten 0 phone calls from you. 0. You can't. And it's the same thing I tell my tenants too. If you have a problem in the unit and you call me and you blow up at me and I'm like, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, that's on you. If you told me and I didn't get to it, that's a different thing. Mike had to go off screen for a moment, it appears. Millennial Mike.
Now we know who the coughing in the background was.
Exactly. I'll answer his super chat. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for the super chat. We know it's Vegas when Zuber hits 50K subs. What are the rewards when Dion and Matt hit 50K subs? Matt should shave. Dion gets married. I don't think Dion would do that if he hit 5 million subs, let alone 50,000 subs. And I would trim my beard because this is how big it is now. I would trim my beard, but there's no way I'm shaving this thing. If you want to see what I look like without a beard, go check out Millennial Mike on Instagram, because we were going into my warehouse and one of the guys that worked in my warehouse, we had like a tote of like old stuff there. He was doing his job, going through it. And then he was like, oh, there's some personal stuff in here. And then he found a picture of me in my early 20s and he decided to put it up in the shop. And I was like, I'm a good sport, but I was like, that is horrible. So,
it was definitely Mr. Steal Your Girl. Yeah, you should follow me on Instagram because it's pretty good. I posted it. I'll post it again if anybody wants to see it. Matt back when he was younger and trying to get all the ladies, and clearly was very successful at it. That being said, I also put Matt through the unbelievably uncomfortable situation for him of going through a nice little photo shoot. I got some great reaction, future thumbnail pics, of him like pointing at stuff. I had him hit the Dion pose with the double flex for the, why section rocks, and it's Dion flexing. I was like, Matt, put him to shame. So we got some good pictures.
That was ridiculous. I was doing it only because I was like, you know what? I mean, you flew all the way from Seattle, and you're doing all this work. I mean, I suppose I'll do this stuff.
Mike, you've met my son, right?
Yeah.
All those thumbnails are kind of a dig at him because he's a gym rat. And I said every time, because he teaches CDL, and I said, you do that thing. Every time you're talking, you go, look, the truck is over there.
Right.
And I said, so all my thumbnails in the beginning, they all look like him doing that. So now people know why. Every one of those is done the same way.
That's awesome. And I saw that there was another super chat, and so I will get to that one. Kenneth Stock. So Kenny is actually my project manager. So hi, Kenny. And I got all the pictures that you sent. What's really interesting is he sent me the list, all of the everything done at the unit. And so literally we'll just forward that on to and Kenny, if you're still watching, sweet. Fix on that light switch to the lower right hand side of that light switch. Just patch that, even with a metal patch, if you could. Thank you.
What's up, Kenny? He had a pretty good beard too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say Mike met Kenny. Yeah, we it's I won't say it's a requirement of the company because I don't want to get sued, but coincidentally we all one. Coincidentally, we all have one.
I got in trouble at my company because I was only hiring left-handed people. I just thought we were the right people to hire, and you can't do that.
Yeah. It's
wait, is left-handed a protected class?
No, the owners were like, we don't want to, whatever. And left-handed people are weird. So, I mean, I could say that being one, but
I understand.
Yeah. So reprimanded, not in legal trouble.
It's awesome. Angel R. Hey, Matt, got me 20 mil LVP from Home Depot at $365 a square foot for Black Friday. Typically costs $429. Do you think material prices will go down, or is now a good time to stack up? I think so. It's hard to say on some stuff. And the reason why that it is because a lot of LVP is actually made in China. And so they're no COVID policy. So with their political policy, they're shut down. They're not making product. If you want an iPhone 14, you know exactly, or whatever the newest iPhone is, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's hard to say. I think so I have warehousing available to me. When we buy typically for what we see as being like the projects that we're doing in the next 6 months. But we have a place to store it. It depends on what your ability is to store product. The biggest thing for me, and the one that kind of bothers me the most right now, is electric wiring. Buying 12-2 Romex or 14-2 Romex. 14-2 is white, and it's usually what's used for outlets and switches. Depending on what code your city's on, you might be on 12-2 Romex, which is yellow. And the bigger issue is that stuff before the great health event was about $42, $44 for a roll of 250, and now it's 118. I don't know that buying at 118 and stacking it makes any sense, but just something to be aware of. So we kind of look at our projects kind of 6 months out is usually the way we do it. Any thoughts from you guys on that?
I wouldn't project more than 6 months out. And I would also look at, and people attack me in the comments when I say this, so feel free. When a nation prints 80% of its currency in the last 2 years, I wouldn't expect prices to come down. And yes, everyone says we didn't print 80% of our currency, because we didn't. We increased the digits in a bank on a spreadsheet 80%, and the Fed is holding assets on their books. So if a supply chain issue caused the price, yes, it could come down. We had peaks. You could tell nobody was working. China being the largest provider of LVP, if they're not working, yes, that could cause a spike in prices now where they could come down. But here's something something that people are not going to want to hear, especially the gamers. You are not going to use any of the cables in your box full of cables. You are not going to use the piece of wood sitting in your garage. If you're running a lot of projects like the lumberjack landlord is, where in 2 to 3 months you're going to be doing more projects, sure, if you find a good deal, stock up on it. The cost of storing the materials is probably going to be more than what you're going to benefit from saving if prices even do come down in the future or go up in the future.
Yeah, it's for sure. Honestly, we like to buy 6 months out, 6 to 12 months out. And the problem that we have is lumber has come down to basically pre-health event levels. Lumber's come down to about $400 1,000 linear feet. When 2x4s were selling for 10, 12, and $13, that was because pricing was at 16 and 1700. So that has actually really largely, if you look at the numbers, it's collapsed. So now's the perfect time to mention. So Uneducated Economist, who is just a YouTuber I love to follow. He saved me a ton of money in my projects that I did, because he was like, the lumber thing really is a supply chain issue, and it's going to remedy itself. And when it does, pricing is going to come way down. He was the one talking about that. He was the one talking about the Cantillon effect and the bullwhip effect. If you don't know what those are, you should absolutely check them out. But today we are live with Uneducated Economist on an interview that we did last week. And it was just a blast. We spent a bunch of time just kind of talking about how I got my start. So check them out. If you like collaborations like that, you guys need to check it out and comment on it. You can still disagree and say that I said something wrong, but if you guys want to see collaborations like that, there's nothing more important to the creator than having them see that the people watching want to see more of it. That's the most important thing. So huge kudos to Simon, because he was saying at 16 and 1700, it's a supply chain issue. It's not an inflation issue. And I listened, and it saved me a ton of money, because we're doing projects now at 290, 330, 350 a 2x4 instead of 12 and 13. So our pricing is 25% what it was. It was basically an 80% crash in pricing on lumber. And that was 100% due to what Uneducated Economist was talking about on his channel. I think some of this other stuff is more resilient. But yeah, that was a huge savings. I think he's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, people need to go watch that video of you and him, and it goes up today. I'm not sure what time, but if you want to help Matt's channel grow, an uneducated economist has a big channel, and he has not done like I think one other interview ever. So if you go on there, comment, we really liked watching Matt on your channel, have him on again. And you guys know each other in the comment section here. Look for each other's comments and like those things to pump those numbers up. I don't want any rookie numbers.
What Mike said. What Mike said.
And like this current video.
Yeah. I like working with Simon. He's a real guy, just like all of us. He's not a landlord yet, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if he becomes one in the next year or two. Alec Lillibridge, I thought Matt had a company he recommended for laminate flooring made in the US. The product isn't made in the US. The company is based in the US. The reason I recommend them is because they are very smart. They have zero retail. They have only warehouses, and they buy whatever they buy by the container. So it typically takes 6 to 8 weeks to get here, but they warehouse a lot of it. And that's why I recommend them, is because if they say they have it in the warehouse, they have 4 warehouses. If they say they have it in the warehouse, they have it in the warehouse, and you can get it within a week or so. Many of these other companies, they find out, oh, actually it's been back ordered. Yeah. That means you're waiting 6, 8 weeks for it to come from overseas. And that's if that plant is even making product anymore. So the reason I recommend them was because they always had this stuff in stock, and they would tell you flat out, excuse me, we don't have it in stock. And that way I wouldn't count on it. I would just order something else. Mark Ham, thank goodness for Mike posting. Otherwise I would have missed you. Oh, cool. Appreciate you jumping in. Chester Williams, I am with the opinion that we need to redefine assets based on what the Fed classifies as assets on its balance sheet. I agree. And the other amigo isn't here to weigh in on that, but he would be the one that would have the best opinion, or uneducated economist, an honorary Avenger. It's amazing. Like, that guy reads the Fed minutes. I'm just like, can't do it. But he's just like dialed in on that stuff. It's awesome.
I'm the same way with Zuber's morning updates.
Yeah,
he gets up at 4. He reads through all the stuff that I would like to know, but there's no way I would ever read it. And then he funnels it down to 15 to 20 minutes of what matters to an investor. Sure. Kind of like the Lumberjack review videos and reaching out to you during your live streams with questions. You have skill sets I don't want to have. I want to have access to the knowledge the few times I'm going to need it, like for granite countertops for a friend or something, to reach out and say, hey, how does this work? But I enjoy not doing rehabs. I enjoy not having those skills. I enjoy not being really good at tenant turnovers, having only done 4. Yes. Right.
Yep.
But I like knowing the people who have those skill sets.
Yeah, no, I think it's perfect. I think at the end of the day, you can pick, Mike's approach or Dion's approach or my approach on landlording. And I think the key is that there's not a wrong way that we're doing it. It's the right way for you. Like Dion, I know, is kind of like, he doesn't want to have to post, rents and rentals and meet tenants and do showings. Like, Dion doesn't want to do that. Dion doesn't want to spend Saturday afternoon at a rental place fixing something. I get that, respect it, love it. Me, I might do that because I'm broken. I'm broken differently than Dion. But I think that that's kind of the key, is that I think that's what I love about what, Zub and Millennial Mike and Dion. If Millennial Mike is having to fix stuff in his rentals, he's got a problem, because he's got to jump on a plane to get to those things.
Yeah, that's not happening. I'm calling people.
But yeah, I mean, again, for me, it's really just, I don't know. I think for me, that's what's really near and dear to my heart, is I like jumping in. I like doing a lot of that stuff. And so I don't look at it as a drudgery.
I like doing it too. I changed the washing machine out 2 nights ago or something. No, it was on Monday night. Nice. But I'm not doing it in Gary, Indiana, because like you said, I have to get on a plane.
That's wisdom. Alyssa M, good morning. Yes, good morning ish. I agree. Good to have you, Alyssa. Bruce Vonk. Hi, Bruce. Welcome to the channel. I've never seen you post anything before, but excited that you asked a question. Thanks for the past project walkthroughs and going over the nuts and bolts of being a landlord self-managed. Cool. Yeah, happy to do it, Brace. Just so you guys know, that's what the course is going to be coming for. I'll actually produce a syllabus. I know that's silly bus. but I'll produce a syllabus this week of what will be in my course. One of the things that we'll do in the course is we'll continue to add content over time, but I really want this course to be for you guys. It's really about how I manage and how I started from one house hack and how I built to 135. And you can get off the track anytime you want. You can hop off the back of that truck and say 5's good, 10's good, 15's good, 20's good. But we build a lot of the processes and things in place that will allow you to scale more quickly and more efficiently and make fewer mistakes. So that's the goal of my course. But as that goes over time, what it's really about is it's really about you guys. As you guys are landlording, self-managing, or trying to manage your property manager, as you guys are doing that, I want to give you some tips and some tricks of how I've done it in the past. And we have some guys that use property managers like Millennial Mike, and Mike Zuber, but they can give you kind of input of how they manage those guys. I think that one of the coolest elements of the course that we're going to talk about is how you become a remote property manager, because there's things that I've helped people do and processes I've helped them set up that enable them to stop having to pay the fees of property management, but they still have all the same level of service that they can give their tenants. And I think that that's a big thing that we can help with. Angel R, when your course launches, you should run Facebook ads. In my main business, Facebook ads have been a game changer. Yes, Angel, they absolutely are coming. And in fact, that was one of the amazing things that Mike did when he came out, is we actually filmed commercials that are unbelievably cringeworthy because they're me feeling completely awkward and weird. But Mike was awesome. We had a lot of fun doing that. And then next time we won't have to do as many commercials, so Dion can come and play. Dion's going to come out to and I know the criteria is it must be above freezing. So I expect sometime in the April timeframe. So it's not saying
technically it was not lethal.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cold, Dion. It was
cold.
Yeah.
It was 9 degrees that day. That was cold.
And the heat and Matt's
all
hoop
around
heat
my
didn't
house
work.
right now.
Well, so you didn't take me serious. Like Mike,
I thought you were kidding, dude.
Yeah. Mike was like, he made some like funny haha comment about heat. And he's like, oh, I'm all hot and bothered about like seeing your hoopty or something like that. And I was like, well, save that emotion because the heat only works sometimes. And then when he got in the car, he was surprised that the heat wasn't currently working.
Look, I've owned a lot of busted cars, but the heater always works. AC is a luxury. That's what windows are for, but the heater works.
It works like most of the time.
We got 3 hours out of 3 days together out of that heater.
So it worked less than it normally does. Let's see. Yeah, that's right. Dion. So real quick, Dion tonight, his live stream, 4:00 Pacific.
So that's a members only one because,
right.
And I'll take just like 30 seconds to explain. Please. You can't make boring videos on YouTube. It will kill your channel. Mm-hmm. Because YouTube shares it with people. They click in and they go, oh, this is a guy looking at his emails. Why would I watch this? They click out. So it doesn't show it to anybody. So the members only ones are literally going in. The first couple, we're looking at leads from my agents, my thought process, how I check the neighborhoods, how I run the numbers, literally going through stuff that people who watch all the time would like to see. Yeah. But the random person coming in would go, I'm not watching this. Yeah. The second one was we did Dividend Dave's leads. And then tonight we're doing Michelle Myers making a binder for one of her rentals.
Yeah.
And going through the steps of that. So imagine if you're on YouTube and you found a channel where they were making a 3-ring binder of something, you'd be like, oh my, this is killing me. I'm out of here. But there are people who are going to be using the binder in the next few months. Matt, the mortgage guy, reached out and said, hey, let's go through. I'm going to be using the binder. There are people it does matter to. Yeah. So that's what those videos are for. So today at 4 is a members only live stream, literally making a binder. The 2 questions were, one, somebody asked, how do you get your rental comps when sending it to Section 8? That was something we missed in that first question. Yep. And it's just like any other binder method, Section 8 or not, you go to where people find rentals in your area. That could be Love It. It could be pads. It could be apartments.com. It could be what is most used in your area. That's right. So look at the one that has the most listings and go through and find at least 4 from apartments.com, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, the ones that are being used in your area. So hopefully that answers that question. The second one comes from Rob. Rob asks Matt, at what interest rate does it make sense to just start paying all cash for properties?
I don't know that there is one, Rob. And let me just give you my methodology here, is that I never I don't know the scenario by which I would buy a deal with cash to be able to afford the deal from a rents perspective on what my capital was in the deal. The reason I say that is because you can skew the numbers by paying cash for a deal. And I don't have any interest in skewing those numbers. I want to know, because I want to know if I ever had to sell on the other side, on the selling side, and on the other person's acquiring side, that the numbers are going to make sense based on what they need to acquire it for. I mean, I think I've done some deals for cash, but the reason I did them for cash was because they were very low dollar. And I was far more interested in having that first loan with the bank be a cash out refi with the bank. So I don't know that there's necessarily an interest rate that would trigger that. I think that would be more like a situational deal. Dion, thoughts on that one?
I think it depends on where you're at in your investing more than the interest rates. Are you in the aggressive grow portion? Are you in the stabilize? Or because it makes more sense to purchase a house all cash than to pay off a mortgage if you have the option to do it. But it doesn't make more sense to buy a house all cash when you can lever it. Even at 99% interest, you're still having somebody else carry part of the purchase. So yes, 99% you would probably go all cash. Probably 20% you'd go all cash. But are we going to see 10 in the next year? I don't know that buying all cash, unless you're at the point in your investing where you're not trying to add more units, you're just trying to add cash flow, because you can increase the amount of cash flow that you're going to get by the more money that you put into the deal, but you decrease the yield.
Yeah.
The more cash you use in the deal, usually the lower the yield you're going to get. So compare the interest rates with what phase in your chronology of investing that you're in.
Yep, I'd agree with that. Rodman Ramos, hi, you are amazing. I appreciate that. I'm sure that's to Mike or to Dion, but I appreciate that for any of us. Do you think rents will come back to pre-pandemic? Airbnb will take the market of rentals as Uber did with taxis.
There's still taxis out there.
Yeah,
Still get them.
Yeah, and I don't know of any taxi companies, and I'm completely ignorant on this fact. I don't know of any taxi companies that have gone out of business. Maybe there are some, but I think the way that I view rentals more is A, it's hyper local. And B, if there are a bunch of foreclosures, then typically you have a bunch of people that used to have a house that no longer have a house, and they still need a place to live, and they may move the area, but they usually don't. They still want to stick around. So then they become renters. The bigger issue that I see is I see the competition going down in one way, which is there were a lot of these federal assistance tenants that needed that federal assistance that they can't qualify for a unit otherwise. So I think that that's going to create a lot more applications on the Section 8 housing side. There's going to be more of a log jam there. But in most cities, you're already looking at a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, 8-year waiting list to get on that list. So I think that you'll see less demand. But I think that you're going to see that, I think you're going to see the people that are in class A move down to Bs, and the people in Bs maybe to Cs, and the people that are in Cs stick, or some people might still go from C to B. But I think that I think the overall rent number is going to likely come down, but that's going to be mainly focused on the A class stuff. That's my belief, is that if we're looking at that A class stuff, they're going to be the ones seeing the pricing pressure with, $150,000 tech jobs or $125,000 tech jobs. Those are the ones that are going to see the pain, not the B and C stuff. Mike, what are your thoughts?
No, I agree. I did a video on my channel a couple months back about what rents actually do during a recession. And over the last 115 years that they've been tracking rents in 5-year increments, there's never been a single time ever where rents actually went down. During the Great Recession, during the Great Depression, rents over a 5-year period never went down. Some local markets, some overpriced markets that are class A's like Manhattan and things like that, rents fell. And that's because even the rich and famous look to pull their belts a little bit tighter when times get tough. They're willing to downgrade, but that B and C class rental property is not going to experience that problem. And that's been proven time and time again. So one of the things that I hear all the time for people who are considering getting into investing is, well, what if the market turns, the value of my property goes down? Well, okay, if the value of your property goes down, but it cash flows on day one and you bought a great deal, you have no problem. Their next question is, well, what if rents go down? They don't go down. And I'm very conservative when I estimate my rents. Someone had asked that question earlier. Well, how do you know what the rents are going to be? And we kind of went over that. Dion went over, you can look in these places. You can also look on the HUD website. I was actually looking this morning at what Gary, Indiana pays for studios, 1 beds, 2 beds, and 3 beds. And those are, if you can get that, then going to the private market, you can probably get a little bit higher, but that's a good starting point. If the numbers make sense with those rental numbers on your deal and you do that deal, you're going to be just fine. Worst case scenario, you can't get anybody to rent it. Well, drop it $50 to $100. If you are estimating conservatively with your numbers, you should easily have the movement in a worst case scenario to come down 50 or $100 and be the most competitive unit in your area. So I wouldn't stress that your rental prices are going to come down. Will Airbnb prices come down?
Yeah.
I think they'll have to compensate for how much the cleaning fees are. Either that or the cleaning fees might have to come back down. But I don't do the short-term rental market with Airbnbs. I'm not against it. I think it's a good strategy. I just think it's not going to work super well in a recession. But I guess we'll see, because this will be the first recession that Airbnb has been around.
Yeah, true story. Dan, anything else to add to that?
So I love it when I see elements of our conversations and videos come up that we've all shared and logic, gone through the logic of to come to the conclusion. The one thing to add to, rents have never come down market wide, the small pockets they have, is the question was, will they come back to pre-pandemic rents? Imagine right now all of the people who are priced out of buying.
Right.
Interest rates and prices are up. And so many people said, if interest rates go up, prices will come down. Interest rates doubled and prices are still up year over year. So that's factually not true and not going to happen. So if people are being priced out of buying, that's increasing demand on rentals. That means rents aren't coming down. They could flatline. Always invest like you plan on rents being flat. If you see a syndication that's projecting any number of rental increase over the next several years, to me, that's too risky. Like Mike said, we invest with the plan that rents could go down. How would we handle it if rents had to go down, even though they never have? Right. So no, I don't think rents can go back down to pre-pandemic. I think you're going to hear a lot of talk about rents coming down. People list a rental. We still do this.
Sure.
When you list a rental, you put it for as high as you think you're going to get.
Sure.
And then when it doesn't, you bring it down. Significantly higher than what it was, but not as high as you listed it. We had Dana, the CEO of Hemlane, come on and talk, and we did an interview. She has 18,500 units on her platform, 3,000 owners, and not one person renewed a lease for a lower amount than what it was. A lot of people listed at a certain amount and then lowered it to what they could get accepted, but it's still significantly higher. So invest like you plan on rents coming down, benefit from the fact that they never have and probably won't.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. Really well said. John Williams, think back to before time. You're saving for the next down payment and a deal of the decade pops up. You don't have the capital. What are you doing? Mike Newton, what are you doing?
Well, honestly, at this point, if it really truly was the deal of a decade, I think that term is thrown around a little loosely. I hear that stuff. I hear people say, oh, there's always a deal of the decade every couple of months. If it really truly was like the deal of the decade, let's say the Burr project I just did, where I was looking for a 90,000 after repair model or after repair value, and I ended up with $134,000 after repair value, like 50% higher than what I thought it was going to be. Let's say the house right next door that was identical in every way came up for sale, identical in every single way. because you have the confidence, because you have the ability to articulate why it's the deal of the decade, because you have the proven experience of, look, I just did this deal. Here are my numbers. And I'm going to make 50, 60, 70 grand in equity like that and be able to pull out 30K. I could go to somebody like Matt and be like, dude, here is the legitimate proof this deal will make us 70,000, no questions asked. And if you don't have the money, I'm willing to bet Matt or Dion or Mike or somebody in your life that has that money. If you can prove it to them beyond, I'm going to use a cop term here, beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Like, hey man, this is as good as gold right here that it's going to work, then you should be able to sell somebody on the idea of doing that investment with you. You know, if you have the money, I promise that it will turn into this money. Here's exactly how I did it. It's the house next door. How could it go wrong? And you'll find that money somewhere. And I'm at the point now where people are starting, as I post how much I'm making on a flip or how much I'm making in passive income or how many units I have, people are like, can I just give you money? Because can I? And I haven't said yes yet to anybody, but if you're really doing deals and you find the deal of the decade and you can prove that it is, the money is out there.
Yeah. Dion.
I have a different opinion. And that's the benefit of having the REI Avengers with 4 people with 4 different goals, 4 different strategies.
Yep.
The deal of the decade comes along and you don't have the resources. This is saying this publicly. I wouldn't partner with anybody on anything. I've met people, right? So I have no desire to work with people, to be partnered with people, tied to people. Like relationship or investing, it doesn't matter. It's because my people picker's broken, right? So it's business or not. So the deal of the decade came across my radar. I didn't have the money. I found investors who have a brain, are in growth mode. I like them. They're friends. And I said, hey, here's the deal of the decade. Enjoy. And there's the Robin Hood Resort.
Yeah.
And Cody and Christian, thank you.
Right. So thank you, Cody and Christian, multifamily strategy. And I'm loving watching all the updates as you guys progress with that. But if you miss the deal of the decade, like it comes and you don't have the resources and you can't get it, you didn't miss your shot. You missed that shot.
I agree.
And to me, boring is sexy. Save up the down payment, buy the next rental. When you see the best deal and you don't have the down payment, I haven't partnered. I haven't tried to grow that much. Mike has a great strategy he talks about for growing a bigger portfolio, and probably has the personality to actually work with people and have partnerships. But if that's not you, like it's not me, find someone else that that's an investor. Give them the deal. The rising tide lifts all boats. How you help your friends will somehow, I have no idea, in the future, somehow, some way, just being friends with Cody and Christian is going to help me. And if that deal helped them, awesome. I don't need to make a penny from it. It's not always about that. It's about helping the people And that's if the next deal of the decade comes across my radar and I don't have the resources, I'll be giving it to the people who do.
Yep. So so boring is sexy, and that's what makes Dion the sexiest man alive.
The most
That's
boring.
looking amigo.
You worded it different. Most boring. I'll take it. I'm gonna get a shirt.
Yeah. So I can tell you that. So Dan, to answer your question, just kind of round it out. I hand deals to other investors all the time. I just do. I hand them to other investors all the time. Even amazing deals. I handed this one off and I was just like, I literally said to them, you're welcome. And I know within a year, I'm going to be saying to you, I should have done that freaking deal and I never should have called you. And on the anniversary, I did call them and said, I never should have given you that deal. And it was one of those things where even for us, we just had too much going on. We had 2 deals that we had under contract, and I just did not want to do that third one right then. And it was a great deal, amazing deal. And you know what? It's great because it's nice to be able to pass it on. It's nice to be able to help some other investor out. To Dion's point, rising tide lifts all boats. You know what? I can't do, and none of us could do every great deal that comes up, deal of the decade. None of us could do every deal of the decade that comes up. Mike is right on the frequency of those deals. I see probably 2 or 3 deals a year where I'm just like, damn, like that deal is going to print. meaning print money. And I've passed some of those deals on just because it was for one reason or another, it was like not right timing or not the right type of project for us in that time frame. I passed on a deal that was 5 commercial and 7 residentials. And I passed on that deal for $1.25 million. That deal just sold about 5 years, 6 years later, 7 years later. That deal sold for $3.8 million.
Dang.
Now, could I have done that deal? Yeah, coulda, but I didn't. And it was just one of those things where it just wasn't the right thing. Dion talk financial freedom. Anyone, me who doesn't think money can make you happy hasn't given enough away. It's true. It's true. Of course, you guys should all recognize you did that with a $4.99 super chat and not a $5,000 super chat. Just saying.
Oof, called out.
But Dion's, but this is exactly right. You give stuff like that away. Honestly, if you believe in karma, if you believe in the principle of sowing and reaping, if you just believe in the principle of generosity, guys, this is one thing that I think is missing from far too many investors' lives. I have given hundreds of thousands of dollars away of deals or rent or whatever over the 22 years that I've done this. You know, I believe that principle of sowing and reaping exists. And I think that people need to consider that their tenants are people. And while that means that there still has to be a business relationship, because there is a part of that, and it's not about being friends, but it is about the fact that respect humanity, you know, I think is something that some landlords miss. And you know what? The extra few $100 here and there is just not going to make the difference to me. But I have to show the bank, because they're my partner. I have to show the bank that I'm being responsible with the money that they've given me. You know, that's a trust relationship. I could never violate that with my bank. We have constant conversation about that. Dion.
So 2 things. First, my brother also gave away 3 properties and $100,000. I mean, he called it a divorce. But Cody Evers reaches out. Mike, how long are your typical tenant turnovers with a property manager? Mine are a little longer than I am hoped. I'm actually curious too. How long are tenant turnovers with property manager?
Mike?
Oh, you mean from when somebody moves out to how long it took me to get somebody else in there?
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to depend on what the reason for the turnover was. So I had an eviction, right? I mean, if you count the entire eviction process, like the 6 weeks it takes to get them completely out, and then the actual repairs, which was another probably 4 weeks, and then you have to list the property, which we listed before it was completed repaired. It was probably almost 2.5 months, about 2 months. On properties where we know they're moving out, like they're telling us they're moving out, well, we have it listed with previous pictures before they've even moved out. And we're looking at maybe 2 to 3 weeks. It can be a little bit longer with Section 8 to schedule the inspections. I've got a couple with Section 8 to the point that was made way earlier. I love Gary's Section 8 program, and I don't like Chicago's Section 8 program. It's been 2.5 months for some stupid inspections for Chicago. And Gary, it was like 2 weeks done. So it sucks to not get rent for a month. It sucks, or 2 months or 3 months. But I don't know that if I wasn't using a property manager and instead I was just self-managing that property, I really don't know if it would actually make a difference in terms of the speed, because there's certain hard times that you just have to go through, like the eviction and then the repair process. You know, my property manager is on it in terms of getting those things taken care of. So I don't know if it makes a huge difference whether the property manager or I'm doing it.
Yeah, agreed. Esther CH, affordable rental property, but need repairs. How do you manage to get people to fix the property? Esther, give me more detail on that, and I'm happy to get the crew to answer that. We can certainly do that for you. Alec Lillibridge, tide will lift all boats that aren't sunk. If you're not in the right place, better to pass. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it can look like a deal of the decade, but if it makes things way too tight for you, I mean, that's the deal that you walk away from again. And it puts you in a better position, like help another investor out, like pass it on. You know, I've been past deals. I've passed on deals. I'm telling you, it's just, don't hold on too tight. Don't hold on too tight. That's a mistake.
You guys are making me feel selfish. All right. You're making me feel selfish.
Good.
So I've seen deals come my way. I was like, that's a great deal. And I didn't have the money for it. And I've helped a buddy of mine, Darius, invest, some other people invest in Gary.
Yeah.
But when somebody says the deal of a decade, I take that very literal. And, you know, oh, I've seen the 3 deals of the decades this year. No, I'm talking about the real deal of the decade. You'll never see it again. I feel bad, but I'm like, dude, I would cut somebody into it to help me get it. But I want, if it's truly the deal of the decade, maybe it's because I'm younger than you guys. The decades mean more to me or something, you know, I don't know, but
it would mean more to us.
I would want it.
We have fewer left of them. They would mean more to us, bro.
You're probably right. Scarcity provides value. So you're probably right about that.
Exactly. Dion, go ahead.
The reason your answer was important is because this isn't a one-person show with here's exactly how you do this.
No, exactly.
It's in the one rental at a time community. It's like, here's 7 or 8 opinions of people who achieved financial freedom, multiple millions in net worth and cash flow. And none of us did it the same.
No,
some of the elements were the same, right?
Yeah.
But
we just know who the most selfish of the REI Avengers is.
I guess so. I'm selfish. And on that note, I'm going to swap out my camera battery and just take a minute to sit here in shame for a second.
So I think honestly, I think the key for all of us is like, if Dion and I got so while Mike's in timeout, if Dion and I got that deal of the decade, like I think, you know, Dion passed that one on for him. I've passed some on. So there's some, Dan, to answer the question too. There are some that I did everything I possibly could to put together the deal. You know, on one deal, I actually took private money. I took private money on a deal. But it was with the conversation that, hey, this money is really much lower risk. You know, and we had that whole conversation. So, but I still paid 10% for that money, but I wanted no end in sight. So I said, I want 10% money. And that was when rates were 7, I think, or 6. I said, I'll pay you the 10% money. All my numbers still worked. And I said, but I want no time frame on it. I said, because you would agree that 10% money is pretty good, right? Oh yeah, of course. Well, I will pay you 10% forever on whatever money of yours I have. And that worked out really well for that deal. So that's what we kind of put it together. And Mark, hey, good news, Mike, you have a friend in Mark Ham. He would do exactly what you did. You're selfish.
I guess so. I'm just a greedy, money hungry millennial.
No, I get it.
That's what I am.
Cody Evers says an eviction took 6 months from not paying, rehab, and filled back up.
God.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see that. I mean, you will see that. And that's just, it's timing specific. It's market specific. I had a unit. I had 2 units that went vacant for December 1. There's no way on God's green earth that we're going to fill them in December, but we're going to take the opportunity to freshen them up, and we're going to get them on market for January or February. And likely they're going to go Section 8, something like that. And Jordan Smith, you're exactly right. You can die trying for that deal 100%. I think it also has to do with where you are in your journey, right? Mike probably hasn't seen enough deals of the decade yet, right? And
I don't even know if I would say I've truly seen the one even. I've seen good deals, but. And
so when that happens, right, I get it. Super motivated to try and, a buddy of mine used to always say super motivated. The waitress would come over and be like, "Oh, how are you guys today?" He's like, super motivated. And I was like, why do you have to do that? Stop. Like that's going to ensue a conversation. I just want to get my drink and my food. So that being said, I think that I definitely see it. Like Mike, you've been investing for what, 4 years now?
Yeah.
4. I would say, so 4 years for me, 4 years into the business, it was 05. So we were just starting to kind of like hit that, move. I can tell you, it really depends on so many things: the timing, the relationships that you have, the portfolio that you have. Do you know that you're 2 weeks away from coming out of a deal and you know that money's guaranteed? I've seen people sign up for the deal of the decade thinking they were getting a windfall from a refi. They didn't get the windfall from the refi. thankfully they were smart and they only had like a $5,000 deposit. They lost the $5,000 deposit. That kind of hurts. I wouldn't want to lose $5,000. That's a lot of money. But at the same time too, if you take your shot, you try and get it done. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I agree. You do whatever you can to put together a deal of the decade. But like I said, you can also pass them on too. Alec Lillibridge, what would each of you consider the deal of the century? What would you really want to own? Dion, what would be the deal of the century for you? I got to guess.
You got to guess?
I have one too.
Yeah. My guess would be a forever home that requires no maintenance and that comes with auto coded, where literally people just move in and they just send him rent on a monthly basis. I think that would hit that. I would think that would tickle that your lazy button.
I don't like the idea of a forever home. I don't want to spend more than 3 or 4 months in any one place.
No, not forever home for you. Forever home for the tenant.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes more sense.
That's the
I know Dion
one.
better. I know what his real deal of the decade would be.
I want to hear it.
Okay.
Other than owning a strip club, go.
It's a fourplex where the owner is willing to use, no, it's a fourplex that Dion gets to buy, but it's being foreclosed on. And the previous owner is ex-wife. Because the petty, Dion, why won't you sell that one house of yours? Tell me you wouldn't buy that. I do have
a petty side. I am very petty. Yes.
Come on.
Deal of the century for me would be one that uses the amount of money I've saved for the best return.
Okay.
And it really comes down to that simple. So I was thinking through all of my purchases, and I think my fourplex I would currently call the deal of the century for me. Yeah. It used every penny. I had it drop me down to $200 in my account. Like I had to use credit cards and a retirement account as reserve to satisfy lender requirements. I knew I had the cash flow, W-2 income, and the rent rolls from the property I was buying to build my reserves back up. But it's, I put $141,000 into it and it was making $1,700 a month in profit while house hacking.
Nuts.
Right. So that to me is what it is, because it's not just about building the cash flow and reaching financial freedom. It's about doing it like you did. It's better than winning the lottery because it's you can reproduce it. So every penny that we've saved, finding a deal that uses almost all of it, takes us down to our reserves and gets a good return. That to me is the deal of the century.
Mike.
I mean, anybody could sit here and be like, yeah, one that has 50% cash on cash return, or, no work that needs to be done, and the greatest tenants ever. I mean,
so it would be. So you're looking at my portfolio?
Yeah, he does have a pretty nice portfolio, actually. Yeah, I want one that's right across from the city, the town center with the giant clock tower. It looks like it's right out of Back to the Future. Run my DeLorean right down the main stretch of time, stretch right there. Yeah, that was a pretty cool one that we were in. Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, it would probably be seller financing a portfolio of rentals with a low enough down payment that I could afford it right this second, and at a high enough cash on cash return, cash flowing perspective that it could retire me from my job today. If all of a sudden that deal fell into my lap, someone wanted to seller finance it, and it was affordable to me now and it could retire me instantly, that would probably be my deal of the century, because that's the whole purpose of why I got into real estate, is so that I can free up my time, have more time, spend more time with my kid. And if that deal fell into my lap today, absolutely, that's what would be my deal of the century. I'm done. I'm out. Love you, SWAT boys. I'll see you later. I'll teach you how to invest. I'll see you on the range, but I'm out.
I think I actually did my deal of the century. And so I was really, really lucky to have a relationship with a bunch of different brokers. I had a relationship with this one broker. She brought me a deal, and it was just a super unique property. It was a 3-unit, a 4-unit, a small bungalow, and a single family house, all on the same lot. But I knew enough about the city. I knew enough about lot lines and lot adjustments and things like that. And so I looked at the deal and I was just like, dang, like this deal could be ridiculous. And so I bought the deal. I paid, I paid about $650,000 for the building, or for the deal. And I went through it and it took me about a year, but I went through it. We touched up a bunch of the units, nothing crazy. We changed out heating systems that had been shared and we changed them out into individual heating systems. So spent a little bit of time and money. And when it was all said and done, I think I had about $150,000, I think, into that deal. I'd done the work. It cost me about 10 grand, but I was able to subdivide the lot and get that single family off on its own piece of land. And so I could sell that house for $330,000. So that 330K, that would have been boom in my hands. What I did is instead of selling it, I decided to lever it with debt. And so I think I took about $250,000, and that $250,000 bought me 3 more properties. So I levered that one single family house. I levered it and I bought 3 more multifamilies that all make about $1,000, $1,200 a piece. So, and now even with the debt that's on that house, I still make about $800 a month on that one single family house. So for me, that was definitely my deal of the century. And so I think I've been blessed enough where I've gotten my deal of the century. So I hope the same for you guys. Cause yeah, that deal, I literally get an email from my bank when we went through the process of refinancing the 8 separate units after I paid for the subdivision. We had to refinance the 8 separate units. Those came back as they sat for $875K. So I'd made a couple hundred on those plus on the house. So yeah, I think I don't see myself doing a better deal than that, but dang.
Every time you talk about your cash flow, I just sit back and think, oh yeah, it totally makes sense that he's still working. All right. Not confusing at all. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. How do you know someone's broken? Well, let me give you the list. Yeah, I'm more than
alphabetically or off the top of his head.
Exactly. I'm more than happy to share that with you. I'm going to start having a board. Mike's going to have his 7 rules of investing, and I'm going to have my 10 rules of brokenness.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say mine was. Eddie Beams. Hey Eddie, how's it going? I'm still finding RV parks for cents on the dollar. I bought one in May for $390K. My competition down the street just listed for $2 million. Love RV parks. They're huge cash cows, but run different versus SFRs, single family residences. Eddie, completely agree with you. I would love to do some RV parks. There aren't a ton of them here. And sadly, because of the price structure of RV parks, most cities are doing everything they can to get rid of them. It's because it's a cost thing. Because you pay a land use fee, and the tax structure on that is very different than if they converted that to being a development property or developed where then a bunch of houses were put up. So most cities lose money on the tax revenue that RV parks generate. And that's why it'll be interesting to see what will happen in the next 10 years. Because I think that they're going to get more aggressive on doing something with those. And I pay my private lenders 12%. Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate that. That's great.
A lot of people haven't thought through the challenges with RV parks and mobile home parks. The municipality provides things like first responders and education based on tax revenue,
right,
of property improvements. And an RV or a mobile home is not a property improvement. It's a vehicle with a license plate and registration.
Right.
So that's why the statistics are something like 1% to 2% of all mobile home parks disappear annually and aren't being replaced.
That's right. Yep. No, it's very true. So I would love it. I would love to buy something like that, but those assets are really, really difficult. And, there's a lot of investors and people that buy an RV park or a mobile home park. They are acutely aware of everything that comes to market or is going to come to market. And they usually have a pretty good inside track on it. John Williams, we're getting very close to 45,614. Yes. I think that's actually like January 5th. There is high likelihood that I am not going to hit it. There is high likelihood at this point that I'm not going to hit it for a myriad of reasons. All night.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to retire in the winter so you can go to a warm climate for a few months. I mean, that would just be
right?
weird.
Oh, that's still going to happen. I'm just going to use up vacation time because I keep on giving up back so much vacation time. Walter White and Jesse Pinkham live in an RV park. Oh, cool. Interesting. Angel
bad
referencing
reference.
Breaking Bad. Man.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was like, why do those names sound familiar? I'm like, are those like YouTubers? Thankfully, no.
You do look like a YouTuber, Matt.
I know. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Hey, you do too. Cassidy Ironman. Have you guys ever looked into buying self-storage? Yes, definitely. In fact, the biggest thing to consider with self-storage is that in many cases, you buy it, you develop it, you do all the things that you do. You don't want to typically try and buy existing self-storage because the big guys that are big guys in your network or in your area, they love buying that stuff and then they jack all the prices. And so the play that I saw is buying the land, building it out, putting it up. And then, because all the rates with the big guys are all crazy through the roof, then you can charge a whole lot more, but still be less than them. So you can be the low cost entry. But that's my thought. Dion, your thoughts on.
So the question was, have you thought of it? Yes, I've thought of it. I'm the lazy investor and self-storage is a business. So you either have an employee who's running it.
Yes.
Maybe there are some sophisticated automated services that would do it as well, but not in my purview because of the level of time commitment it would take to run it.
Mike?
Something that's definitely very interesting, but I feel like one of the problems that a lot of people have, especially people who talk about wanting to get started investing in real estate, is they get the shiny object syndrome. They're just chasing short-term rentals versus single-family homes, but maybe multi-units, maybe house hacking, maybe storage units. Dude, pick something, become an expert in it, learn a buy box, learn your market, go that way. So that's what I'm doing. It's not that I'm against it, but I'm not going to derail myself and go chase something else, at least not yet.
Nice. Steven. Hey, Steven. Thanks for coming. Hey, you guys, when you lived in your duplex, did you let the renter know you were the landlord? Does that make the process of repairs easier? Also, did it increase the complaints? Well, Dion hasn't even let the person that he's house hacking let her know that he's the landlord. So
that's not true. They know. They know I'm the owner. Mike, you're still in your duplex?
Yeah. And I have my patrol car parked outside. So if they even think of stepping to me, no, I'm just kidding. That's terrible. That is not a sanctioned statement. That was a joke. Yes, they know that they know that I'm the owner. If there's an issue, they send me a text. I mean, every tenant that I've ever had over there, I have never gotten a complaint. I've never gotten an issue. I've had just a handful of repairs over the years, like a water heater went out, nobody's fault, just happens. It was old. And I went over there and replaced it myself. I'm friendly with my tenants. I have a pretty good relationship with them. Could it go wrong in some situations? Yeah, I suppose it could. But I mean, I have not had that experience.
Dion.
So all of my tenants know I'm the owner. I don't understand the benefits people think it has to think that you're not, other than some people like to think if you rent from a property management, it's cold, it's rule based. As being the owner, I have had the tenants that reach out and say, hey, can we pay the rent late? Because they're looking for somebody that has no backbone and no systems in place. So if you have no backbone, no systems, then you have a property management and have them actually run it like a business. If you can run it like a business, I let them all know. I do let my tenants know that I have some partners. And partner to me could be a mentor, somebody that I would go to for advice. But to make any large decision, I am going to run it by my partners. And we will collectively decide if something can happen or not. So if a tenant asks for a screen door to be installed, I put the screen door in. If the tenant asks for a pool to be installed, I say, I talked to my partners and they said that would be stupid. So I'm not the bad guy that has to say no.
So because I'm broken, I let them know that I'm the landlord and that I have no problem saying no. But I also don't mind saying yes. And so I think that the key is that if they say, so I let them know. I'm the landlord and the owner. That's what we did when we lived in those duplexes. And I've found that that helps because very often, I want to know about those problems. I really do. Like the things that people consider not an issue. Well, I only saw a couple drips on the ceiling tile. Like just reach out. And I always tell them, hey, reach out to me and let me prove to you whether or not I'm a good landlord. You might not like the answer, but I'll always get back to you quickly. And that's the thing is you can get back to somebody with a no. You just have to do it promptly. You know, the worst thing is like the ignoring thing. Like you can't be afraid of having a conversation or answering a question, you know? So I respect my tenants. And so when they send me something, I just respond back, yes, no, or I have to check into it. Some people ask for some things. I'm just like, I honestly don't know. I literally have to check into it. But then just do that in a timely manner. I think if you do that, I think you earn goodwill with your tenants. Cassidy Ironman, I think hiding the fact that you are the owner might be more useful for a large multifamily where turnover might be higher. I think large multifamily, Cassidy, when you talk about that, so my head goes to like 20 units, and that I would want to meet the person that's living in one of their 20 units because that is the ultimate hack. Usually it's the smaller
Cody.
stuff that I see. Oh,
he's
that's
just Cody doing Cody things. He's living in one of his units of his 20 unit. It's beautiful.
It is. See, and that's the ultimate hack. Now we'll see what happens when he gets a wife and kids.
Because me and Mike are going to keep put pressure on him to make sure he doesn't do something stupid like that.
Don't do it.
Well, also, what did he do? Like just turn 22?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, no rush. Jordan Smith, have been considering building a 2 to 4 unit house hack. Any thoughts? Love the idea, generally speaking. I think it really comes down to your market, the costs, the land, the permitting fees. The one thing I would tell you is most people think it might be something as simple as buying land and then I build a building. It's so much more than that. I give you an idea on a fourplex in my town. If you were to build a fourplex, you would be looking at a $9,000 fee for an impact fee and a $15,000 hookup fee for sewer. So you are going to spend $24,000 times four, or it might only be one sewer fee, but 6 or 4 impact fees. You could spend tens of thousands of dollars before you move an ounce of dirt. So all I would tell you is you're going to have to do a lot more research on that. But Dion, go ahead.
For the most part, new builds do not turn a profit for the first 5 years.
Yes, true.
Rents in an area don't justify the not just the cost of materials, but the permitting, the burn rate you have while it's happening, all of the issues that are going to happen with subcontractors. I mean, there's actually a reason why not one of my properties is younger than 30 years old. My youngest is 30. I get the same rents as a building that was built 5 years ago on the same street. It doesn't go, my building is 20 years newer than this building, so I'm going to get 20 years newer rents. The rents in an area set area average rents. It might be a little more for more amenities, higher end stuff, but not enough to justify the time and expense of a build. There's a pretty large reason why most house hacks are low down payment for owner occupied lending, low interest rate for owner occupied lending, and your rents make it cash flow either right when you move out, or if it's more than a duplex, usually you cash flow while you're living there. That's not going to happen with a new build.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. There was a question, Cassidy Lumberjack. Did you have a mentor or program that you followed when you were getting started? Didn't have a mentor, didn't have a program. That's exactly why I named my course. Oh shit, I'm a landlord. Now what? That's why it's named that, is because I was all excited about getting my first rental property. And then I was like, oh, what do I do now? I was just like, I don't even know where to begin. And I didn't even know any other landlords where I could be like, hey, so what should I do now? It was a disaster, me figuring it out. And it was tough, but yeah, we just school of hard knocks. Mike, what did you had a mentor, right?
Yeah, 100%. So,
and a course or
no, I didn't take a course. So when I first heard about real estate investing and first got interested in it was because I was just watching a ton of YouTube in like 2010, 2011, before Graham Stephan, before a lot of these guys. And I just watched videos about real estate for a long time. So I would kind of consider that a course because I'm just soaking up tons of information. People used to do it back in the day. They'd go to read books. I listened to podcasts before they were called podcasts and that type of stuff. I bought my first house hack, no mentor, no help, no nothing, just watching and coming up with a plan. When I decided to move to out-of-state investing, that's when I had a mentor. And really, it's this kind of a funny thing because I hear people all the time ask, or I see posts like, should I pay for mentorship? I think that completely defeats the purpose of a mentor if you're paying for it. I'm not against coaches, but like I would consider Mike, Zuber, Dion, Matt, all mentors to me. I don't pay for their time. What I do is I just ask them questions, spend as much time around them as I can, watch their live streams, try to give any type of value that I can give to them, even though it's small in comparison to what I get back. But if you're paying for mentorship, I'm sure there's people out there who are doing it successfully. But like someone who's a mentor cares about you, cares about your success, wants you to do a good job, wants to see you succeed, is giving you advice. Typically, they're not going to be charging you for it. I mean, I think of mentors I've had in the law enforcement world that helped me get on the SWAT team and helped me get into specialties and things like that. Like, it comes from somebody you've just built a friendship with that you respect, who's doing what you want to do. And then when they tell you to go do something like call the city planner of Gary, talk to Section 8, like, okay, then the next morning, like I was on the phone this morning talking to people. Like, you just slowly build that relationship and you report back and you ask for the next step. And eventually down the line, you realize and go, that person was my mentor. But kind of along the way, it might have just started out as somebody you were like, I asked this guy who knows more than me a question. And he was dumb enough to keep wasting his time talking to me. So I'm gonna take advantage of that. I keep talking to him and asking questions. And eventually, a couple of years down the line, oh yeah. So Mark, the guy who helped me in Indiana, we just started talking in the YouTube comment section of a video. But eventually I ended up buying properties using the same turnkey providers he did, the same insurance company he did, the same property managers that he did. And I walked through that process by copying and pasting what he had already done. I didn't reinvent the wheel. So anyways, there's enough of that.
No, I think that's right. I think mentors and coaches, like Eddie says, I think they're two different things. I think mentors is much more hands-on, much more journey-like, a lot, getting a hold of any information that you can get from that person, their stance on things, how they do it. I think coaches come in for kind of that, kind of like deal review, like 3 hours, kind of like they can coach you through the different pieces of it and give you just a better standing. And then you see what kind of feels good to you. One of the things we're going to have available in the course is that coaching piece. Mentorship, way too much time, way too expensive, all of those things. There's that little bit of coaching that can happen. I think when you become that landlord, or when you are that landlord and saying, you know what, these are some areas that I struggle, and these are some areas I can probably, get some help with or get some better understanding or better clarity on. I think that might help. Dion, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I made a huge mistake when first starting out by not defining what a mentor was.
Yeah. I
thought, I want to invest in real estate. I want to create a pension. I want to have income coming in that's not from a source where I have to sell my life 1 hour at a time. And my brother had retired with 10 paid off rentals. And I had a friend who had 30 rentals. He ran a real estate brokerage, had 19 agents working for him. And he was very successful. And I thought, this guy is an investor. He's a realtor. He has decades of experience. Obviously, that's my mentor, because we were friends. Way before investing, we were actually close friends. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to sponge off of this guy and learn how to invest. Had I listened to him, had I gotten the offers accepted on the first couple of properties that he found for me, I would be bankrupt and I would not be investing in real estate, because he was successful in real estate. He was successful as a real estate investor, as an agent. He had never purchased with a mortgage. He had never purchased small multifamily. He had never house hacked. So the things that I was doing were not in his wheelhouse. His advice was great if you were made enough money to buy all cash. If you were buying over 20 to 30 years of timing the market with when the crash wasn't, but he was buying all the time, and some deals sucked and some deals were amazing. The amazing ones turned into his portfolio that he retired with. if you're going to have a mentor or a coach, make sure they're not only doing what you're doing, but they have your resources, or at least awareness of your resources, your goals, and what they did would work in the current market.
Yeah. No, I think that's...
and it almost tanked me. Luckily, there's luck involved. Those first couple of offers didn't get accepted. Other people lost their tails by getting higher offers accepted on those properties.
Yeah. Millennial Mike. So Glover, what's the first steps you would take? You wanted to self-manage your out-of-state rentals. Then you answered, I asked him that exact question. And then Glover said, what did he say? So
I asked you this question when we were hanging out at your place, and you were talking about your course and how your course was going to help people self-manage. And you and I had a conversation about self-managing at a distance. And I was like, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying that it would be difficult. It would be tricky. So what would you do? And yeah, I mean, we did have a whole conversation, and I guess I could sit here and say what Matt told me, or Matt could just tell you himself, I suppose, since that's the point of being on the live stream.
Either way. I mean, I think just kind of the general tent poles are, and you'll see this, like some of the commercials that we have coming out about the course. I am absolutely apoplectic about what property managers get paid for. It makes me go icky baluki nutso, because they're paid a fortune to answer the phone call, right? And that's why the laziest real estate investor I know doesn't have a property manager. He's the laziest investor I know, and he doesn't have a property manager. He literally gets the call, but then he just forwards it. And I think the key to that is your network is your net worth, and building a network wherever your rentals are is really the key. And so that's one of the things we're actually going to cover in the course, is how to build out that network so you can give up having to pay property managers. Because I can tell you, I've done the math, and I've seen a lot of it from people that I know that have property managers. Their property managers make more money off their properties than they do. That's unbelievable and unconscionable. Like, I've spent 6 months on this, having people, I'm like, sure, just show it to me, because they're like, dude, you just need to stop self-managing and just focus on your career. And I was like, ew, no. But this is what happens, is that people will take and Dion would try to convince you that he's lazy. His approach is lazy, but it's smart. It is, he wants as little drag on him and his life as possible. And he's willing to give up some shekels to do that, but not all. It takes almost always, it's more than 50% of what your net income is what you're paying in property management fees. That is bad math every single time. Dion, your thoughts?
There are 2 times where I think it makes sense to have a property management company, but you have to understand the hidden cost of property management is that it's at least 50% of your net, right?
Yeah.
So you have to invest in such a way that 50% of your net is what you're looking for, is still worth doing the investment. The first, if you don't have a backbone and can't stick to a lease and put systems in place and actually hold to it, like I rent to a nephew, I rent to a friend, and I wouldn't recommend that in the first few years before you have your systems in place. But once you have your leases, and my nephew can call me and say, hey, we don't have the money to pay the rent, you're getting evicted. I mean, come over and eat dinner. I'll feed you because you ain't got any money, but you're getting evicted, right? I've got my systems in place.
That's right.
Hi, if you're watching. But if you're investing out of state in a place like Gary, Indiana, and you're not going to travel there, and you don't have the systems in place, and the properties get you the return that you're looking for. So it comes down to yield. You know, it's like at what interest rate do you pay all cash? At what rate do you not have a property manager? If the yield is still good enough and it's a strategy you want to use, sure. I love what Millennial Mike is doing. I still think that, Mike, you're making a mistake by not having that second house hack under your belt.
I'm looking for one.
I'm going to keep applying the gentle peer pressure of encouragement
or shame,
with sarcasm.
or shame.
Or shame.
It's all good.
But so yes, I do think that no matter where you live, house hacking, the more expensive the area you're in, the more important it is, and it's repeatable. So maybe only once or twice, because you don't want to move all the time. You want to keep your kid in the same school district or whatever the reason is. But you don't need property management where you are if you have the backbone to have it in place. And if you invest out of state, I still think it makes sense to have it there. I would not want to manage my portfolio at a distance. The exception, because every rule has an exception, is I invested where I live over a decade. I have multiple handymen in place. I have multiple contractors that I have relationships with. If I move to Thailand for 6 months and then Colombia for 6 months and just never come to this state again, I'm still going to self-manage. I haven't had to be at a property in 5 years. I've gone to a few, like, oh, I want to go see what's going on. It's the first time I've never been inside this property before and somebody's moving out. So I can get to go see what's in there. But yeah, but not start that way.
Yeah.
Wrap up that way.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Mike, thoughts on that? I mean, based on.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've said on my channel many times is you should not try to self-manage your properties at a distance because you don't know the local culture, you don't know the local laws, you don't know any of that stuff. Now, if you were going to front load buying your first rental with, I mean, really like job shadowing somebody who's already doing it and has existing success in that market, maybe. But I think Dion's point is right. Like, would it be easier for me to establish myself as a landlord, slowly have learned all this stuff over the last several years, and then now try to go self-managing? Yeah, it'd be way easier than if I tried to start out that way. So, you know, with what I said to Matt, I'm not saying you can't. It's definitely possible. I think he's got a lot of great strategies as to how you could do it. I'm still apprehensive about moving to that myself. I also think it's important to recognize the time that you have, because it does take some time. If you're working full time and you have kids, that can be difficult. And then lastly, kind of to Journeyal's question, it was down here about, you know, unfortunately there was a tenant of his whose mom passed away. Now they're late on their rent. They're not communicating. Should he post an eviction? There's a lot of landlords like Journeyal, who I had the privilege of meeting at Zuber's event. Dude, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy, friendly, cares about other people, watches all of our stuff. And that was me before I became a cop. And not that being a cop turned me into a jerk, but what it taught me, and it's probably the most valuable thing I had in my entire life, it taught me how to have hard conversations where there's going to be a negative outcome for someone. You're going to jail. Doesn't matter how much you cry. Doesn't matter how much you beg. Doesn't matter if you bribe me or bargain with me. Like, you've done something that is bad and it's illegal. You're going to jail. And how to have a professional conversation with somebody where something very bad is happening to them that they don't like an eviction, and be able to maintain your cool, your calm, your composure, be friendly, be polite, be respectful. And you know, it's very hard to have those conversations. I'm sure Journeyal doesn't want to evict this person whose mom just passed away. But the reality is that if you don't post it, well, the problem isn't going to get better. Most likely you're going to have to post it eventually. It's lost rent. You're just delaying the process. So if you're not the type of person who can have those conversations, you need to have enough introspective self-awareness to be able to recognize that and say, I need to hire somebody who can have these conversations for me. That might be what you need a property manager for. And it might be worth paying the unfortunate 50% of your real profits that you should have gotten from your rental property.
Something to add to that, Janelle, is you will be helping the tenant.
Yes.
If you file for an eviction.
Yes.
Because there are programs out there that can help tenants, but they do not help until paperwork's been filed.
Correct.
Now they actually have an articulable fact that they can take to that program and say, here's the situation. I've got a couple of tenants who had 2 months covered during the last couple of years of nonsense that was going on. And one time they went to a program and the program says, we can't help you unless you're being evicted. And the tenants didn't want to start an eviction to get help, so they didn't get it. But in this case, yes, it seems kind of heartless, but even educate the tenant, send them a message saying, hey, we're starting the eviction process. And in the county, in one of the counties that I invest, it's probably in both, a friend was serving an eviction. One of the requirements with the eviction service is, here are the resources in this county that you can reach out to. Here's the timeline that you have to respond to let us know if you've made that contact. None of that happens unless you actually serve it.
No, that's exactly right. The biggest mistake that I made in my earlier evictions was not doing it faster. That was the biggest mistake that I made. I thought I was doing them a favor. I wasn't doing them a favor. I was only screwing myself, and that's no good. But yeah, to the property management thing, that's what I've taken the time to break down in my course, is remote property management. And the reason that I can speak to it is because in the last year, I had to build a 100% remote team because I couldn't go on site anywhere due to my daughter being sick. So I know exactly what that's like my properties might as well have been on the moon. It didn't matter. I couldn't go there. I couldn't see tenants. I couldn't talk to them face to face. I couldn't go in and fix anything. Might as well have been on the moon. And so I had to build an entire team, even though my closest rental to my house is like less than a mile. And then I have almost all of my properties that are within 8 miles or 10 miles. So I had to build that team, and I'm just going to share everything that I went through, how I built out that entire, how I did that entire process to where thankfully I didn't have to hire. We looked at it. And that fee for them was unbelievably astronomical. And when I looked at the number of calls that we get cumulatively from all of our units, I was like, I absolutely am not paying that. I am absolutely not paying them that much money to take that number of phone calls or texts. So that's one of the things that we'll actually take you through in the course, kind of build that out. Hopefully that's helpful to you guys, but that'll be in the syllabus. We'll talk to you guys about that. Let's see. Engineer, you're very welcome. Eddie Beans. I'm sorry, Lars Nilsson. Lars, happy to have you here. Thanks for asking a question. Fortunately, I pay 10% to property manager and still cash flow $500 a month on single family home, but it started by me losing a job and moving to 25, I believe that's 2,500 miles away. So yeah, totally get that. I think the big key though is that people think that remote instantly clicks you into having to have a property manager. I can tell you, I've done it. I've built it. There is a way to do it where you don't give up that 6, 8, 10%. But again, you always get to make that choice. All-nighter hider. My buddy took his Section 8 from Wisconsin to California. I think they paid more because of the difference. Yeah, they definitely pay more for sure. Go ahead, Dion.
So this question came up twice. I just want to make sure we get to Angel Hearts. It was kind of up a little bit.
That was the next
one.
And
we get this question a couple of times, but I do like that we have an answer. So what is your minimum cash flow per door? Millennium Mike?
$250 per door after all other expenses. $250 is where I start.
Dion?
So I invest on a yield system where I want to find out the area average yield and do better than that. So in my area, if it was not easy, but common to find 5 or 6% yields, I would be looking for an 8% return. I was able to find 7 or 8s for a few years, so I looked for 10s. And I live in an expensive area. So the cash flow per door at a 10% yield is several hundred. It was 400, I think, is the lowest I've ever had per door, but it's not a minimum. I go off the yield system. If I was investing in Gary, Indiana, I would have a per door minimum so that it's worth my time and energy and effort to manage the property manager and the property and take the risk. So if you live in an expensive area, I like to use the yield system where I make sure I'm getting at least a 10% or better cash on cash return. I believe in Gary, Indiana, Mike, you're getting much better than a 10% cash on cash return. But someone could do that at $20 a door if the investment was small enough, like with a zero down VA loan.
Right.
So I like to kind of have a 2 system check where I'm getting better than average yield for my area, and I have a minimum that's worth the time. And I think for me, a minimum lowest probably would be $100 per door. That would be a very cheap property in my area. And here's the beautiful thing after per door, that's when you buy it. 2 or 3 years in, I don't have a property right now that's getting less than 900 per unit. And I would say that they're almost, the average is over 1,000, but I have one that's paid off and it skews the numbers. But the rest of them, they're all 900 or more per unit because I've owned them for a few years. So get on the ladder, get that $100 to $250, $300 per unit, and then add time to the equation.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think, for me, the door number is the result. That's the result. So I'm not going into a deal looking for that number. I'm looking at what the result is of all my other numbers being in place. So it's return on capital for me, which is how much I put into the deal. And then what I'm going to get paid back monthly. To Dion's point, in an expensive market, it's a lot easier to, kind of look at that return that you get. 20% cash on cash, Glover. Yeah. I mean, I think we won't do a deal unless it's over 20% return on our capital. We just won't. And then the longer you own it, obviously, usually the better off it performs. So not so much a door-to-door thing. Matthew Paris, howdy, good. How are you? CJ Underwood, thoughts on Matt Onofrio bank fraud? I'm sure you guys saw that, right? Probably.
Nope.
Some
I don't watch
headline. Smart, Dion.
Yeah. So saw it. I think the real challenging thing is that I don't know. I'm interested to see the inner workings and if what they accused of is what actually happened. So just waiting to see what their findings are. But yeah, I think that the challenge is when you have a run up like this in real estate, the challenge is, or what becomes commonplace is everybody looking at those real estate things that grew really quickly and drew a lot of attention and things like that. So I'm kind of interested to see how it hashes out, is my take. Cody Evers, would any of you invest in a property that had a great equity gain potential, but only cash flowed minimally, AKA what David Green recommends? Dion, you're a David Green fan.
I am a David Green fan, and I've not actually heard him say that. I've heard him say that at different stages in your investing, you might focus on appreciation more than cash flow, which I agree with. If you're going to make an appreciation play, don't make that your first or fifth or maybe 10th rental.
No.
But if you have a portfolio that's kicking off $30,000 to $50,000 a month in pure profit, and you know of an area, I purchased a rental, so I've actually did this. That was my third or fourth purchase. It cash flowed the minimum I would accept. So it was the very bottom end of what I was expecting. And it actually comes up to one of the other questions that's going to come up. It was an older couple. I figured they're going to be fixed income. Even the binder strategy wasn't going to be something I was going to use there. So I wasn't going to make a lot of money. But a mushroom farm in that city had recently lost a lawsuit and was having to move out of the area, which has like a 5-mile radius of a really bad smell that was going away. So I purchased it, not on an appreciation play where I think population is growing or some economic drivers are moving to the area, so rents could go up. I knew rents were going to double because they had lost the lawsuit and were moving away. So it wasn't my first or second property because you need the cash flow in the beginning or you're not going to scale. But if you have a portfolio that can handle purchasing a property on a future gain, it's kind of more on the gambling. It's like, I don't want to own any crypto, but at some point I might buy 1% of my net worth in crypto and think I could totally lose that. Great. But if it makes money, that'd be good too. So I look at it that way as far as doing an appreciation play. And that's what David Green is talking, is at some point, if your portfolio is large enough, you can take more risky purchases where you're not worried about only investing for cash flow, which in the beginning, I think as a whole is what most of us should be focusing on.
Yeah. Kind of my take on this is, yeah, I think very often if you are investing for appreciation, you got lucky. You didn't do anything amazing. Like I bought in a city that I had done all my homework, I'd done all my research, and I was like, all right, I think that this is the place to be. It would appear as though I was right. The good news is that I never did a deal, to Dion's point, I never did a deal that didn't have great cash flow. And all of the capital, all of the equity, all of that stuff that I've quote unquote earned over the last, 10, 15, 20 years, great and awesome. But the thing that I'm most focused on 100% of the time, all the time, I don't care if my property's worth 500K, $1 million or $2 million. I only care about the cash flow. I only care about that. And I think that when you're guessing for appreciation or when you're investing for appreciation, you're guessing. I've seen people put in tens of millions of dollars because they thought that a railway stop was going to get put in. And they're like, it's going to go off the charts. It's going to be unbelievable. That was my best Boston accent, off the chats. And guess what happened? The rail didn't go in. And those numbers that they had did not work for the property that they had. They had land too, that they were like, now what? So appreciation is like trying to time a market. You might get lucky, but you also might get clobbered. So I want that cash flow. So I agree with Dion. You got to really focus on that cash flow. Pallavi, thanks so much for the super chat. No questions. Come on, Pallavi, always ask questions. Not a landlord yet. Good for you. That's right. Be patient. Thank you a bunch to all three of you for great information and questions or answers. You are very welcome. My pleasure. Our pleasure. I'll speak for the guys. Our pleasure. Let's see. Yeah, he said to go for equity first and then exchange it into cash flowing properties like bigger multifamily. Yeah, I hate that strategy. Yep. I can't imagine.
Whenever it's taken like that, possible. I would want to know the question he was answering.
Agreed. Yep. Totally fair. But yeah, if that is his answer on what we believe the question to be, there's a lot of ifs and buts and candy and nuts. Don't make a very Merry Christmas. But yeah, that's what, I buy for cash flow. Appreciation is what happens over time, regardless of the market that I'm in. I've just seen far too many people invest in an area thinking that something was going to happen, some event that was going to completely change things. Now, that being said, you can certainly be in an area where you were investing where something changes and then absolutely blows up your spot. That can happen too. So that happens positively and negatively. Michelle Meyer, a little behind on the live. That's okay. Watching at 1.75. That makes my voice sound even more squeaky. But wanted to ask about evictions in our area, Pierce County. Anyone have experience on that process being a nightmare? Dion?
So I've never had an eviction, but I've worked with friends who have. And the experience that I have is in Thurston County, which is the next county over to Pierce. 14 days.
Love it.
Day to serve, the 3-day notice, 10-day. Sheriff was there on the 14th day. Tenants made a mistake and sent an email saying, I'm not going to pay you. That sped the process up. So I'm not very familiar with Pierce County, but I can't imagine it taking longer than 3 months. So plan on 3 months, benefit from shorter.
I will be sharing my eviction nightmare story. I'm going to do a full video on it because it will be the biggest financial loss of a video I've ever done because it cost me about $5,000 in legal fees to do that video. But we share the good, we share the bad, we share the ugly. And that is about as ugly as it gets. And I am still waiting for that writ of possession on that eviction, but I will share every step of it. And I agree with Dion's advice. Retain my attorney now. Be prepared. Yep, I agree with that. If it's your very first one, that's one of the things that again is is going to be in my course is talking about the eviction process, what to expect, how it goes. There's a reason why Dion and Mike and myself and Zuber, why we don't rent to tenants that have an eviction. There's a reason for that. It's because they know exactly what the process is. So I want to train you guys on what the process is in my state, how they do it, what things you can get ahead of, and quite frankly, the things that tenants could possibly do to you in that process that would get you to lose or break or fill in the blank. So we absolutely are going to be covering that.
As she's catching up to the live stream, can everybody do me a favor really quick and just type thank you, Michelle, in the comments so that she sees them before she gets here? Because tonight on my live stream at 4 p.m. for members only, she is the one we are doing a deep dive building a binder for. So for her to share her information and go through that process, I want to say thank you.
That's awesome. Michelle, Michelle's fantastic. That's so awesome that you're doing that. I think that's great because we're all here for others to learn. So I think that's awesome. So I've got probably about 6 minutes left. I got till 2:00 because then I have a job I got to go back to.
It's like you started speaking a whole new language there. What was lame?
Oh, you suck. Yeah. It's
okay.
so true.
I have quit. World of Warcraft waiting for me.
Yeah, exactly. I can quit any day. Yeah, World of Warcraft, then food, and then a nap. Yeah, I just charted out the rest of Dion's day. So Dion's members only is tonight. Michelle will be participating in that. That's awesome. Guys, if you haven't stopped by Dion's channel, his subscriptions are really, really, really inexpensive. And you get access to stuff that absolutely will help your journey. I think it's huge. So if you haven't stopped by his channel, jump on, check that out. Mike is going to be he's got an interview coming up with, what was it? An angry Idaho investor.
Dude, buddy of mine has a duplex city house hacks in Idaho, but
Okay.
because everybody blew the prices up, he can't make sense of the numbers there. He's pissed off. He's angry. He wants to know more about Gary, Indiana. So we're going to talk about whether or not long distance investing, Gary, Indiana is right for him. It's going to be an open conversation, not pre-recorded. We're doing it live. So if people want to watch, by all means.
Sounds good. I'll probably be watching after we put
2 p.m. Saturday Pacific time, 2 p.m. Pacific
2
time
p.m.
Saturday.
Pacific. So, okay.
I set an alarm on my phone because the reminders, even with the notification bell click, doesn't always pop up, and I want to make sure to be there.
It's true. Yeah, we'll definitely be there checking that out. For me, guys, uneducated economist. I really had a lot of fun with Simon doing that interview. He asked a lot of really good questions, and honestly, he asked a couple of questions that I don't think I've ever been asked. One of them we did a video on with the three amigos with Mike and with Dion.
You should ask Millennial Mike. I don't know if he's seen the video or not yet.
Oh no, he hasn't seen the video. No, it just is it live?
Yeah, I just texted it to you. Put it in the chat because I can't post because I'm not a moderator. It won't let me put a link in the chat down there. Hyder can, but that's the only guy. But yeah, put this link down there. Everybody go watch this uneducated economist video that has Matt in it. Let me make sure I actually link the right one before we send him to some weird YouTube video. Okay, that is the right one. We're good. Yeah. But yeah, he did that video with Uneducated Economist. If he puts it in the live chat down below, you guys should all go check it out after this.
Yeah. So, and I just made you a moderator, you big crybaby.
There we go. It wasn't that hard.
So Mike, so the question that he asked me, and I already did this with the three amigos. So I already did this with Dion and I did it with Zub. The question that he asked me was how you would, and Dion, you can keep me honest on this, because I think the question was, how would you fix affordable housing? I think was the question, or how would you fix? Yeah, how would you fix?
I think it was a little more
housing?
Vague. It was just how would you fix housing?
Yeah, how would you fix housing? So, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, you only got like 4 minutes left, man. So
dude, like take as much time as you want. Well, that's what's funny. When he asked me that question, I was like, I mean, that's like not, I mean, I don't spend much time pondering that. Right. So it's like, we kind of do what we do. But
if I wanted to think about how I'd fix housing, you got to start with setting expectations. Not everybody's going to get a house today. Not everybody needs a house. Not everybody deserves a house. Not everybody can handle the responsibility of saving the money for repairs and for fixing the roof and the water heater and maintaining a house. Okay. Doesn't mean they won't be there at some point. Doesn't mean that I don't care about people and, oh yeah, they don't deserve homes. That's not it at all. When I was 18 years old and I lived in a little studio apartment at 18 years old, and I was just learning how to pay my own cell phone bill and just learning how to make my one payment to the apartment and my one payment for internet, the complexity of owning a property and saving for that wouldn't have been possible. I wouldn't have been able to handle an expense. There's a very good reason why we have this tiered system we have, where you start out with your parents and then you get roommates in an apartment, and then maybe you get married or you move into your own, what they used to call a starter house. And then eventually you build your way up into something better as you learn how to be responsible for more things. So I think that it's important to actually educate people, starting with education, as to the proper process you go with to make it to homeownership. The average age of the first time that somebody owns a house is like 31 years old. It's also like the same time as the average age for marriages in this country. Like marriage is like 29 and 30, and owning a home is 31 and 32. So there's a reason for that kind of stuff. But I also think there needs to be a cultural shift around what a starter house is. I think, to a question that was way earlier about building duplexes, that it's genius in concept on paper. Maybe it doesn't work so great in practicality because it's so expensive right now. But I think people need to shift the mindset of you buy a starter house to you buy a multi-unit house. That's your starter property, which is why I think as more people listen to podcasts and educate themselves on YouTube and realize that the actual education system is garbage, people will start to move that way. And so providing those units would be very smart. But I think if you wanted to fix housing, You need to teach people that it's a process. You're going to work your way up into owning a home. You're going to move through these steps, building credit, saving money, all that type of stuff, getting qualified with a lender, having a job. You're going to look for a house hack property first. Then from that house hack, even if you don't want to be a landlord, you start with a house hack. You can have roommates if you're in an apartment. You could sell it and buy a house, or keep it as a rental would be my recommendation. But I think it starts with education. It starts with explaining a process. It starts with coaching kids before they get attacked by credit cards and bank loans and all this dumb, every 18-year-old private who joins the military that I pull over driving around his $60,000 Dodge Charger. And I'm like, bro, you're 18 years old. You just signed up. You make no money. Your entire paycheck pays for this car. Now I have to write you a speeding ticket for the other rest of your paycheck because you're doing 100 in a 60. Education really trumps all. Awareness and education. From there, can we talk about, well, it would certainly be nice if there was more supply. Yeah, we've underbuilt the last 15 years for houses. Yes. But there's no real good fix for how to all of a sudden build 15 million houses overnight. That's not possible. I mean, we can try to build more, but when the recessions go up, down, and sideways, who knows? But the more people who are educated, the more people who understand the process, the more people who watch channels like these guys' channels will be able to move through into the middle class and live the American dream. And like Dion, I think it was, who said earlier, you can get off the train at any point you want. One house hack, 5 rentals, or 200 units like Zuber. And my boy over here, or maybe it was Matt that said that. Sorry about that. But if you understand the process, you'll be so much better off. Really, it comes down to knowledge, which, not to sound like Ty Lopez in a garage, but knowledge is what you need, and the Lambo. But that's just me.
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think you guys should watch the video, because I think that, so we did the video on my channel. You should watch the video. I think that, Dion's answer, my answer, Mike's answer, I think we all have generally the same view that there's a lot of mindset shift that needs to happen. But I think that, part of it too is there's a mindset shift, not only on, I talk a lot about education, and, then we talked a lot about zoning, but I'll let you guys watch that video. I think it was a great video, well worth the watch. You get kind of our perspective on it, because I know that as landlords, or, at parties, right? The next couple of years, so the last 2, everything's been about property and how amazing it is and how much money everybody made at these parties that I don't get invited to, that I'm thankful that I don't get invited to them. But in the next 2 years, it's all going to be about how, this guy bombed, that guy bombed, crypto blew up, and, landlords suck. And so be prepared for that piece of it. But there's a lot that other people can do to actually put themselves in a better position. I was in a unit that is a $1,400 a month rental. They had 5 flat screen TVs. Everybody had an iPhone. Everybody had an iPad. I'm pretty sure you can afford a house. Pretty sure. I'd be willing to bet it. But you've had other priorities, and that's fine. I don't begrudge that. But if you want a house, then you're probably going to have to make some financial adjustments. So Dion, you've got that fantastic live coming up tonight, 7:00 Eastern time, 4:00 Pacific, right? For your members only. Anything else?
Where we're going to do something super boring and actually make a binder, start to finish, the research, the thought process, the order, the structure. And it's probably one of the questions I get the most is how do you do this?
Awesome. And Mike, just your interview tomorrow?
Interview Saturday, tomorrow, how to get started investing in Gary, Indiana. Folks, on your way out, make sure you like the video, help Matt out, dude. He's struggling. Look at him. He's really struggling on his channel right now, growing faster than everybody else. Just help him out here.
I'm thankful for all the YouTube friends that I have. It's the best. Strider 89s, all because of you guys sharing the knowledge. You guys are thinking about getting a 4-plex. That's awesome. Keep on doing the work. Keep on educating yourself. Know that success is a journey. It is not a destination. It's the journey. So continue to do the homework, continue to focus on what you're looking for, understanding your market, learning your market. And thankfully there will be a course in probably 4 to 6 weeks out that will help anybody that wants to do more when it comes to just get more out of their rentals, have better process. We'll have all of that stuff in there. Like I said, syllabus will come out with next week. We'll do a video on it, walking people through the actual syllabus. And then we're certainly going to add other content to there, but there was kind of a core of what I wanted to do, which was, kind of 10 or 12 lessons. Then we'll deliver that to you guys and go from there. But everyone have an absolutely fantastic weekend. We'll do our Sunday live stream. Check out Dion's subscription and program tonight with a membership, and Millennial Mike's tomorrow with talking to an angry landlord. I'm looking forward to that because I think a lot of us are frustrated as well. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. Have an absolutely fantastic week. So we'll talk to you again soon.
Ciao.
Bye, guys.
Bye.